Heated Hippy, where we just kind of do a debate panel show in the spirit of Reverie Roundtable and the Hippy Dippy. And I did collect a interesting assortment of characters tonight, and I'm going to go over the rules. I'm going to go over the topics. I'm going to let everybody do their little intro. They can shout themselves out a little bit, but realistically, keep your intro short, and then we'll get into the general topic. We will run for 2 hours, so it's relatively a short show for a panel show. If we need to change up topics in the middle of it, we will. And then there is a third hour that is optional. If you just want to stay on, debate for 2 hours, and then dip out, then you're more than welcome to do that. If you want to kind of be a part of a chill, cool down session where we just hang out as a group and kind of slowly, chilly discuss the subjects at hand, but in a less contentious atmosphere, then you're more than welcome to hang out for the last hour. So the rules are no terms of service. I know some of you guys are on Kick or Rumble or whatever, but we would prefer it if you didn't scream the N-word in the middle of our streams. That way we got banned off of our respective platforms.
Damn it.
Well, it's okay. You can still say ableist slurs and sexist slurs. Those are perfectly fine.
So we can talk about retarded whores on this panel, right?
You can, although some people might take offense. And what I was going to say about that is, minimize slurs if people are genuinely offended. Basically, if nobody's offended, I don't care. Go wild. But if somebody is genuinely offended, we are trying to talk about the ideas, not necessarily like attack individual people. So if you see that somebody's actually a little bit iced out, then go ahead and try to be nice enough to bring them back into the conversation. No brigading doxing, so if you do harass people outside of this platform, you will not be invited back. No interruptions during introductions and outroductions. We're trying to give everybody a fair share of their things. Raise your hands. I will basically write down your name so I can give you a shot at talking. If you feel like you haven't been able to get in for a few minutes, I'll make sure that you have an opportunity. 10-minute sidebars. We might have to exercise this tonight. The topic is more about like general social prescriptions than it is about the individual drama. I do expect us to drift in and out of the drama, though, in order to litigate some things. If we're on 10 minutes of a micro detail of the drama, then I will drag us back out after 10 minutes or so in order to try to get back on topic. So think of this like a mixed martial arts bout. We're going to touch gloves. We're going to engage in rhetorical combat. Try to respect your opponents, relatively speaking, and then we're going to end the fight. Tip your fedora or tap your gloves, and we'll call it a day. Then, here we go. Let's get into the topic. So, the topic is, recently, Hunter Avallone and his wife Carissa announced their divorce. Divorce is not uncommon in our society, and so many took this news as the eventualities of life. However, since that time, an acquaintance of Carissa released a series of sordid messages revealing that she had an anonymous OnlyFans account, that both her and Hunter had participated in it, and that was a substantive amount of their monthly income. This again would not have been a big deal, particularly with sympathetic progressives and leftists who are pro-sex work. However, it was additionally revealed that after her separation and divorce from Hunter, Carissa was considering expanding her work to more hardcore content. Critics have lashed onto these revelations, using it as fodder to criticize Hunter for turning away from conservatism. They state that this is the result of progressive perspectives on sex, that it is unconscionable that they engaged in this behavior while having children, and that now they are divorced, the work Carissa was considering was particularly aggressive. 1. Should anyone be engaged in sex work in any kind of society? Should it be legal at all? 2. Should married couples be engaged in monogamous sex work? Does that change anything? 3. Should mothers be engaged in sex work, considering the potential impact to children? 4. Are there limits to the sex work that people should consider if they wish to be respected by polite society? 5. Is this the result of progressive and liberal perspectives on sex? And should society instead enforce a more conservative model, either legally or culturally? So, Mr. Andrew Wilson, do you want to kick it off for us?
Yeah, so this entire debate will basically be likely about stigma. That's all that leftists can ever argue when it comes to sex work is, oh, this is stigma, the fucking stigma. We need to get rid of the stigma and make it safe for the women. That's all that they can ever argue because they have no moral framework because they're a bunch of degenerate scumbags. So that's basically what this is going to end up being. My argument right from the outset is going to be, no, it's not about stigma. It's about virtue. The reason why none of the men on this panel, and likely none of the women, are going to go buy a prostitute, even though some of the people on the panel will fight for your right to the death so that somebody else can, is because you don't find it virtuous. There's no virtue in it. Since there's no virtue in it, there's no particular reason we should be promoting it. But that's exactly what this is going to be. It's just going to be we just need to eliminate the stigma around it, and then everything will be perfect. It's not going to be fucking perfect. It's not going to be great. You're all full of shit, and I can't wait to get into it.
Awesome. All right, and then Chud, I am going to go pick up my son and put him in his little rocker, so rant until I'm seated again.
Okay, as a progressive, I do find it pretty despicable and disgusting that people have acted like this isn't a totally fucking, at the very least, eyebrow-raising story. The fact that someone is trying to set up a six-man all-black piss gangbang. You know, they're acting like it's crazy to talk about it, crazy to focus it. I've received flack for my coverage, which I admit is gratuitous, but fuck me, it is at the very least eyebrow-raising, if not like disgusting. So I just feel like we've gone too far. We're too heavily sexualized. I'm sick of it. I hate it. I just wish we could take a step back and have a bit more balance in this fucking discussion. And progressives weren't insistent on going so balls to the wall that anything goes, endless hedonism. You know, it's crazy to me. And I've got to be honest, okay, I don't want to fucking hijack the panel and make it all about me, but you've got useless twats like a Connor Boy going onto panels talking about it, even though they've got no fucking clue about any of it. All right? Honestly, your performance on that panel was really fucking ridiculous. You clearly don't know anything about this, yet you weigh on it anyway. I don't talk about economics, I don't know about it, so maybe you could do the same respect in the other direction, okay? And then Stardust, you did this ridiculous hatchet job, pushing Carissa's talking points to shit on Kingston because it's the easy thing to do. Honestly, it was insane. Your video was ridiculous. Hopefully we can hash it out a bit. Don't want to hijack the panel, but I'm just putting out there, I'd like to discuss those things.
I want you to hijack the panel. That's all sounds fucking base. I can't wait to get into this shit.
I will allow some hijacking of the panel, but hopefully we can hash out our differences and continue with some of the broad social prescriptions.
No, we're taking it over, Connor.
Okay, you know what? I'm a little bit sick. I'm taking care of a baby, and I only have a limited amount of caffeine in my system. So if you guys hijack it and it's just a shit show for the next 2 hours, it is what it is, and I will blame all of you. Econo Boy, please introduce yourself and tell us what you think about the topic.
Yeah, sure. Name's Econo Boy. Mostly do economics and politics at this point every now and then. I don't really upload too much anymore, but, you know, if you want to hold out hope and subscribe to my channel for the next content, you can, I guess. But to answer the panel topics, you know, should anyone be engaged in sex work? What about married couples? You know, what about mothers? I mean, I guess my answer to all those questions is more or less just going to be, you know, if they want to be engaged in sex work. I think the most interesting question is question number 4, which is, you know, are there limits to sex work if you want to be, you know, respected in polite society? I think that's a little bit more interesting because it's a little bit more practical of like, how do you navigate the world if you do sex work or the type of sex work that you do, and, you know, how navigable should the world even be? I'm a little bit more open to that question, but, you know, so I guess we'll see that. Is this the result of progressive liberal perspectives on sex, and should society instead enforce a more conservative model? You know, I don't know how much the Hunter Avallone situation is a result of progressive and liberal perspectives. I mean, I don't think there were many OnlyFans models back in like the 1900s, so it's hard to say. I assume that our perspectives on sex have changed the way that people engage with that work a little bit over time. But in general, I would just endorse a more progressive and liberal model on that. You know, if people want to do it and it's between, you know, consenting adults, then I don't really see the big problem with it.
All right, cool. And Ginger, please.
Yeah, I actually have no problem with sex work in general. However, I believe that the issue at hand had nothing to do with sex work and just mostly to do with cheating.
Okay, yeah, then we can do sidebars where if we feel like we have things that we need to litigate that aren't rawly in the topics, I'll try to write down the sidebar topics so we can break them down. And I'll write down cheating and breaks of trust as a part of the sidebar. And then HPCR.
Hey, I'm HP. I'm relatively new to this kind of space, but I do, you know, Discord shit. I do some informal debating. I'm not as plugged in as some of you guys are with the lore with Hunter's situation. I know, you know, little bits and pieces, and I kind of agree with Ginger in that seems to be the product of two people who weren't in or able to navigate a mature relationship and engage in monogamy the way that they, you know, promised to themselves that they would. In terms of sex work, I tend to fall in sort of, very least, I'm sympathetic to legalizing sex work. Usually they'll break into two camps, decriminalization and legalization. And I'm more sympathetic to the legalization, and we can get into why I think that's the case.
Thank you. Sansol?
I'm Sansel. I actually thought that this was supposed to be an intervention for Connor for not recognizing the true heroes of the Imperium, the Imperial Guard. But since we're talking about sex work, I feel like I feel like on one hand, I'm pretty liberal. I like the idea of people being able to do what they want to do. I don't think that people actually take into. I don't think that people appreciate the gravity of the impact that posting nude photos online, even for photo or for monies, can have on them for future job prospects, for their emotional outlook looking forward. If someone that they know finds that fucking OnlyFans, I think that people don't really take the gravity of the situation into account, because they see people living high and mighty lives on yachts with rappers and shit because they have, OnlyFan clout. So like right now, unless someone is able to convince me otherwise, I'm kind of against OnlyFans because it's just selling a false image of what the lifestyle actually is. As for the Hunter like sidebar that we're probably going to have to get into, damn, I feel bad for the guy, but also it feels like he really did a lot of this shit to himself by continuing to fucking argue with everyone about his own cucking online for like, I don't know, days and days and weeks afterwards. It's just like fucking unbelievable that someone would do that. So yeah, I'm excited to hear what everyone has to say about it. I don't want to take too much time at this part.
Okay, I am terrified for the main open panel. Stardust.
Yeah, so with the exception of some content made on OnlyFans, I'm actually generally opposed to sex work. I find most sex work in the world is coerced or forced, and a lot of it is started from a really young age. And although, like, the common argument that other progressives will bring to me is that, oh, there's a difference between sex trafficking and sex work, I'm not willing to discount the experiences of such a large portion of the sex work industry. Yes, there are consequences to OnlyFans and all of that, though the only thing I would say in favor of OnlyFans is at least it allows women to take pictures from the safety of their own bedroom. And I tend to be okay with that. But for the most part, yeah, I'm generally anti-sex work because of the victims in this. And when it comes to the Hunter and Carissa Avallone thing, while I am opposed to sex work and while I find this idea of like, setting up a gangbang like absolutely fucking ridiculous, I still do not see the justification of Kingston to release all of these very poorly censored images onto the internet and basically just completely expose this person. So.
Okay, I'm going to.
And
open
also,
it. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. Also, I do agree that Hunter was phenomenally stupid with the way that he handled this. So, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for your insight. So,
Yeah.
I heard a couple of sidebars. One of them being the revenge porn aspect of them. One of them.
Sorry,
being
counterpoints. I'm sorry to interrupt. There's
Go
something
ahead.
important I need to say. Okay. You've missed one of the most important topics in this whole drama, okay? And it's about people like fucking Stardust trying to digitally lynch a fucking sexually assertive black man.
I'm not trying to digitally lynch anybody, okay? I have.
Yes, you did. Your video was fucking disgraceful.
Wait
You
a
missed
minute.
out key pieces of information and tried to act like Kingston was fucking digitally raping Carissa.
During my stream covering the drama between Carissa and Kingston, I said several times that Carissa willingly engaged in it. Did I not?
Okay, why did you miss out in your little summary? Why didn't you include the DMs on the 24th of May, which showed her most sexually interested? Why did you miss that out exactly?
I was going over it. I'm not going to show the entire video again. My point
No.
stream.
In the fucking timeline, you didn't include the DMs on the 24th. Why? Very simple question. Why didn't you include them?
Let me finish what I'm saying. My point of that stream was to go over the claims that Kingston made in his video and explain why I disagree with them.
Okay, well, why didn't you include the messages on the 24th of May or even mention that in the timeline? Why was 24th of May?
Because we already know that they were sexting. We already have been over that.
Okay,
covered
wait, now
that in
hang on a
previous
minute. You
streams.
included
I
lots
covered
of
that in
other
previous
information in that
streams.
flowchart, but you missed out that one specific thing.
Because
Why?
I
Did
mentioned
just- it
already.
just
Is
slipped
it
your
because
mind?
Carissa? Yeah. Is it because Carissa didn't want you to include it? You got everything from Carissa, didn't you?
I mentioned already.
You got everything from Carissa, and then you let Hunter come on to
Okay.
fucking spin the narrative.
On the 15th.
It's obvious, fucking obvious, Stardust. Just cop to it.
Let's take
in that stream.
turns.
In that stream,
Let's
Chat
take
Logic.
turns.
In that stream on the 15th, I already clarified that up until the 15th they were not sexting. After the 15th, they were sexting. So all beyond May 15th towards whenever she ghosted him, they were sexting. I already included that in the stream. So this nitpicky point of why didn't you
no, it's
include
not a
the
nitpicky
24th
point at
when they
all,
were
because
when
you
they
were
were
trying to
sexting
perpetuate the
entire
narrative that
time.
Kingston is some
They're
fucking sex
sexting the
pest.
entire time. I'm not trying to perpetuate this
But you
narrative
did.
because
Yeah, I mean, you
both
went
of them-
right to Twitter and
both
called
of
him
them
every
are
name under the
engaging-
sun.
Both of them are engaging in it consensually and willingly.
Yeah, but Stardust, you did go to Twitter and call him every name under the sun, and
I
essentially
because I
did
think
paint
he's a
him out
piece
to
of
be
shit.
some
I think
sort
he's a
of
piece of shit.
why? What did he do that was so horrific?
I think that the response from him is completely overblown. Completely overblown.
What, releasing what's true?
Releasing the pictures, yeah. Releasing the DMs, I don't give a fuck. But releasing those pictures, yeah.
So you think that blurred images of Carissa are bad to share? Am I understanding that correctly?
The first, okay, so there are two versions of that video. The first version, the first one that went up was barely censored. It showed her face. It showed basically everything. And there were tiny bits of blurring that had like 0.1% blur on Photoshop. That was the first
yeah,
version
well,
of
I mean,
that
how
video.
dare
The
he? How dare
second-
he release nudes
the
of an
second-
OnlyFans girl who released her nudes all over the place and had
Those
a
were
public,
private.
literally had a listen, her Twitter was outed. I broke the story on this. Her Twitter was outed. It was public all over the place. What do you mean? He didn't release anything. He didn't release her butthole and everything was on that Twitter. Okay.
They were private images that she sent specifically only to him.
So what?
So that it does qualify as to me completely overblown, releasing private images, and the first version of that video once again was so uncensored, and the second version I have no problem with. The second version was completely blurred.
The one that you shared, you don't have a problem with, right?
Yes.
I actually have a question.
Okay, that's interesting.
Do
What
we-
about Carissa? What does Carissa think about the blurred images? Does she think it's okay to
Ginger,
share
I
the
see
second
ya.
video?
She probably doesn't.
I'll get
She
you in.
probably doesn't. But I disagree with her.
So by her definition, okay, so you disagree with Carissa on that particular point, and it's
I
just
do.
so happens to coincide with the fact that you shared it. Okay, here's a question for you. Why did you
There are
share
a
the My
bunch of
Free
other
Cams account?
streamers
Why did
other
you
than
share
me.
an image
A
of a My
bunch
Free
of
Cams
other
account? What was the
streamers
purpose
other
of that
than
in your
me.
coverage?
I'm far from the only one who covered the second version of that stream.
Okay, but why did you share the My Free Cams account? What was the purpose of that in your coverage? What point were you trying to make?
went through and I blurred everything that I thought needed to be
That's not what I
blurred.
asked you. Why did you show it on stream? What was the purpose of doing that?
Because we were going over stuff that was leaked.
Yeah, see, so what are you, some kind of revenge pornographer?
I mean, maybe I am now. Like,
Is that what's going on? You're some kind of revenge pornographer? I mean, you basically are guilty of the same thing you accuse this guy of doing.
Yes,
that's
and
the whole point.
That is the point. Exactly right. So you are getting on your high horse about fucking what they're doing, but you're doing the same thing and you're doing worse because you're being gratuitous by showing them My Free Cams for no reason.
The first version of that video was so uncensored. Anybody looking at that would say that this qualifies.
Why
as
did
revenge
you?
porn.
What was the purpose of the My Free Cams account sharing that on
we
stream?
were just going
what
over the
point
stuff
were
that
you
was
trying
leaked.
to make?
We were
But
just going
why?
over
What
stuff that
difference
was
does that
leaked.
make that she's got a My Free Cams account? That's not
I mean,
relevant to the story at all.
why do we go over the stuff that's leaked ever?
Okay.
But the point is that is gratuitous in and of itself and unnecessary.
All right,
So,
I'm gonna.
You know, you're criticizing
How's it
Kingston for
unnecessary?
releasing things that are gratuitous and unnecessary, whilst you
I'm
are streaming
covering
things that
things that are
because
Okay,
it doesn't
we're-
matter to the broader
We're gonna
narrative.
pause,
already
pause,
released,
pause,
not
pause.
things that I've gone and I've searched for.
Okay, let's pause for a second.
And it was blurred.
It seems like it seems like we have two issues ongoing, and we have somebody who wants to get in as well. So the two issues that I feel like have been made a point is that Kingston is not a particularly nice fella, and it seems like Stardust's coverage highlighted that way in a way that Chud believes is biased, and then simultaneous to that, simultaneous to that, I believe Chud is pointing out a certain level of hypocrisy because it felt like your coverage was a little bit gratuitous, going over all the extra additional lurid details in a way that might have exposed Carissa more than
Yes,
otherwise necessary.
exactly.
However,
And
we can continue on that line of thought. I just wanted to summarize it. And then Ginger had a question relating to this, so I wanted to let her get in for the question. So Ginger, go ahead.
Well, I just have two things to say. One, the question is, when she sent it to him, the images that he leaked, were those sent on Discord or were those sent on OnlyFans?
Hey, Ginger, I don't know if you have the
Discord.
right mic selected. It sounds like you're maybe speaking into your
It sounds
laptop
like you have
mic
a
or something.
really high noise gate, is what it sounds like.
I'll try to fix it.
Maybe.
Okay, can we? It was released on Discord. Does that change your next point at all?
No, absolutely not. I don't. I want to say that the things that happen on Discord are separate from the things that happen on OnlyFans. Everything that happened on Discord, I consider cheating.
Okay.
And Star, I don't think that there's any problem admitting that you did something wrong here by showing that.
Okay, and
I don't think
I
I
want to
did,
summarize.
honestly,
I want
so.
to summarize a point and then just open it back up so we can talk about whatever. One of the narratives that has come since the Hunter Avallone tweet, where he said that you can check the timelines based off of my tweet and their interactions and all that kind of stuff, is Carissa and I believe Hunter and people by proxy are saying that Hunter was comfortable with them sexting, just not physical stuff.
Yeah,
is
fucking
that
sure he
a
was.
is that a
post-hoc
distinction?
rationalization, total bullshit.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to open it there. Go ahead.
I mean, me and BPF have got the same take, but I've spoken a lot. So BPF, take it away by all means, please.
No, it's bullshit. Hunter Avallone's a weak-willed vagina. There's no fucking possible way that guy was okay with Carissa Avallone sexting with anybody. Okay, that's not what happened. They found out about it later. Okay, and then he went into damage control mode, and that's what these vaginas do. Okay, he's a weak need. There's no way that Hunter Avallone wanted his old lady to be out there setting up gangbangs. It's fucking ridiculous. What world do you people live in? What world do you people live in?
I think that he was probably fine with her like messaging people on the OnlyFans app because that's kind of the point of it from what I understand. But she was talking to this guy on fucking Discord, which is not the OnlyFans app.
Yes.
It's like
Talking
giving
about
your
getting
phone...
cream pie gangbangs. What's that got to do with building
getting
your
pissed.
OnlyFans?
I don't have any
pissed all
hate for
over
Hunter
it.
Avallone. It
I have
just
a
seems like a
question.
ton of cope.
Chud, did you show the My Free Cams thing as well?
I
on
didn't show the
stream?
My Free Cams myself. My side stream on Discord, they showed it there, but all the images were blacked out. But yeah, sure, they showed it there, but I didn't show it myself. Neither did I show the original video at all because it seemed a bit much for me.
Okay, all right.
Okay, is there not a potential hypothetical argument just running defense that this was like the girlfriend experience where OnlyFans girls will sometimes try to create relationships with their, create parasocial bonds with their fans?
Oh wait,
or
but
isn't there a
is that
messaging
also
I think I
code?
talked about that. I think I talked about that on the Stardust stream, right? Stardust, where wasn't that like the charitable argument was that Kingston was saying like I'm training you to like be a good OnlyFans star or something, and like that was the
Mhm.
explanation
Yeah.
for the sex. That was like
you
the
would
charitable
believe that, wouldn't
explanation for
you,
the sex.
Econo boy? You don't know
My-
anything about this fucking drama, so why are you piping up on it, mate?
No,
The
Shud Logic.
Jedi
I was
Master of
responding
Whores?
to.
Is that what
shut
he
up.
I was
is? Like,
responding.
Fucking wanna
I was
know how much
responding.
sex
to-
work
Let me
was
show you my
CDP
Padawan
by-
whore.
I was. Yeah, no, exactly. No, Chud. I was
Freudian
responding to
on purpose,
counterpoints
man.
who.
What's going on?
I was responding to counterpoints who brought up
Are
that
you the
charitable
boss of it?
hypothetical. That's like the charitable interpretation, but I'm kind of on the side of, and even on Stardust's panel, I said, yeah, it does kind of go against basic logic to say that that's really all that was.
I
going
would be
there.
way more
And I said that
charitable
on
if it
Stardust
was
That was the
panel,
all
by
one
the
good
way.
through
take you
the
had. That was the one
OnlyFans
good
app,
take you had,
okay?
okay?
If it was all through the OnlyFans app, that would be way fucking different, right? But the fact that it was off that platform on a continual basis with someone that knows who she is, that's like a completely different. It's a completely different like ball game there.
Well, then I want to hand this to Ginger because Ginger was saying that this was actually one of the main contention points was this doesn't have anything to do with sex work. This has to do with cheating. So, Ginger, did you want to kind of introduce us into that tangent?
Well, I just don't think that anything that she did off of the site is work related. She was no longer getting paid for what she was doing. Any agreement that she had with her husband would have been completely thrown out the window at the moment that they started discussing things on Discord or through text message.
Sure. Yeah, the OnlyFans cam work had nothing at all to do with the fact that she started talking to other dudes when she wanted to open up the relationship.
No, I think that she
on,
definitely
like,
no,
don't
because
be naive.
No, you're misconstruing me, Andrew. I don't totally believe that women use it as an excuse to cheat constantly. Do I think that it in itself is cheating? No, especially if you're being completely open and honest with your husband, if they're working with you, that sort of thing. However, taking it off the platform, you're just asking for those accusations to be thrown at you. I can no longer feel sympathetic for her for the things that she sends outside of that platform, because outside of that platform, you're no longer under the obligation of the copyright. The copyright obligations, they're no longer under the legal agreement of OnlyFans. They are now under a completely different agreement.
So can we all agree then that Hunter Avallone's a fucking cuck? Can we agree to that? Is there anybody who's going to dispute me on this, that Hunter Avallone's a cuck? One person on the panel. Just want one person to dispute that.
So I think there were screenshots that were provided that show Carissa saying that she's going to ask Hunter before she sends any nudes to Kingston. If we believe that,
isn't the whole cuck thing
Carissa's
like
been so
doesn't
honest,
the cuck
we should
want?
definitely believe what she
Well,
says,
doesn't the
certainly.
cuck want to know about
Right.
his girl fucking someone else?
Yeah,
Right. That's what a cuck is.
I don't really
Not
care
even
that
the
much about
cuck.
that situation, right? Like the rest of the questions that we were actually here to argue about are much more interesting. But isn't the whole point of the cuck fetish to like know that your girl is out there getting fucked by someone else?
Okay, listen,
Sure,
I've got to say, I could sit here and I could argue with Andrew about what's a cuck, what's cheating, okay? But put that to one side for a second, right? If even on the day of that you announce your divorce, your fucking soon-to-be ex-wife is arranging 6-man all-black piss orgies, okay? I think that arguing the fucking logistics of whether you're a cuck or not is a bit fucking foolish, okay? Ostensibly, you are a fucking cuck, whether or not it's true or not to the dictionary definition. And if Hunter's plan is to argue with people about whether or not he's technically a cuck, that is going to fail miserably, and he should just fucking take it on the chin, like Carissa apparently likes to do, and fucking move on. That's
So
my
for
opinion.
years, when the
She said not
right
in the
wing,
mouth, okay,
so
Chad?
for years, when the right wing was accusing Hunter Avallone of being a fucking cuck, it turns out we were right the entire time, and he's a fucking cuck. I still haven't heard a single person dispute it.
Yeah,
Not a single
I was about
person.
to say I typically try to stay out of these things, but does any of the pro sex work crowd want to differentiate these things? Because basically,
Someone save Hunter.
Well,
Save Hunter, please.
someone defend his
Come on,
honor.
Stardust,
in the-
listen, you had him on to have an interview. You must
No,
have some positive
okay,
things
hold
to
on.
say
I
about it,
wanna-
surely.
Pause. I want to make a differentiation, and then I want to open it back up. I'm not supposed to defend anybody's honor, but let's presume, let's make a presumption, and you can rip apart my presumption in a second, that the relationship was relatively professional from May 1st to May 15th. May 15th, Kingston starts asking for sexual favors as payment for his coaching of Carissa during the thing. She obliges.
No, wrong. Where are
Okay.
you getting that from?
But your coverage. But you can explain
Wait,
you can explain it to the class.
Okay. So on the 15th, what's actually happening there is they've had this conversation about an OnlyFans, and he's trying to set up as being an OnlyFans model. Okay, obviously I don't have the DMs in front of me. This is off the top of my head. And the things that he's doing are not like sexually coercive. He's doing like kind of fuckboy level manipulation, where he's saying like, oh, you didn't message me back for a day, so I don't message you back for a day. You know, oh, if you don't do the thing that I'm saying you should do, I'm going to lose your number, you know? So it is like I say, it's this kind of manipulative aspect to it, but she is willingly engaging in that. And from the other direction, like she's sharing screenshots, which you fucking showed in your video, Stardust, you total fucking retard, where Carissa cut off a screenshot just before she had sent him back a message of her sucking a dick in a video. So obviously,
She never denies
she's
that though.
Why did she present the screenshot like that then?
Because that's what I had. I had those screenshots, but I specifically said after that interaction that they started sexting.
Okay, no. Wait a second. That's total bullshit. In your video, you put the screenshot exactly the same as Carissa, which is why I know that you work closely with Carissa to set that fucking whole piece up, okay? And it cut off the key context that just after those messages, she was engaging sexually with him straight away, okay?
No,
so this
I
coercive angle is total fucking
that's
bullshit.
What happens. I specifically said that that's what happens after he confronts her about that. She engages with him sexually. She does it. Yeah.
Stardust, let
willingly
me ask you
engages.
something, Stardust. Are you
Yeah.
willing to concede that Carissa Avallone, the artist formerly known as Carissa Avallone, is a prostitute? By definition, that Carissa Avallone's a prostitute. Are you willing to concede that that's true?
Prostitute.
That that Carissa Avallone meets the textbook definition of a whore, an actual Does anybody want to dispute that?
I guess. What is your textbook definition then?
That you were gonna get paid to have a bunch of dudes fuck you and piss all over you, isn't it? Like, how much more of a textbook definition of prostitute would you like than that?
Yeah,
she's a sex
I
worker,
would
yes.
say that. Yeah, I would agree.
Okay, so Hunter's a cuck and Carissa's a whore. Now, can we get back to the topic?
We
But no, this
can.
is
I was
just
expecting a
a-
little bit more
I-
defense, but okay.
I think that is. I think that this is just like nitpicking again, right?
Oh, now
I-
it's
specifically-
nitpicking, huh?
No, not you, Andrew, not you. Toad Logic, okay? You
Okay.
within that stream, I did not deny the fact that she willingly engages with him, and I specifically said the reason I laid that out is because May 1st through May 15th, we know that they weren't really engaging that way. May 15th, he confronts her about it, and she engages. Do I need to show the follow-up message where she sends him a picture or whatever? I don't really think so, because I already say that happens.
So first of all, you're missing key context in those messages, but we don't need to dwell on that. I think I've made my point quite clear on that. But the second thing I want to say is you push this narrative that Kingston, the fucking giga pimp guy, had caught feelings for Carissa, okay,
That's
to
what
try
I
and
thought
further.
initially. And
Okay,
wait a minute.
it's a
You
retarded take.
never. Wait a minute.
Let me
wait-
ask you a question.
wait a
Do you
minute,
think that
wait.
someone that's got feelings for someone would organise a 6-man, no turn down, all black piss orgy? Yes or no?
Initially, yeah, I did, because he's into that poly shit.
It gets funnier
He's
every
into
time I
that
hear
That is
it.
insanity. That is
It's funnier every
insanity.
time I hear it.
How the
I-
fuck are you
He's
gonna have
into-
feelings
he's-
with someone and
he's-
be like, yeah, let's get a bunch of dudes to piss on your face?
Because he's into that poly shit, dude. He has
And I'll-
a girl
Yeah,
There's
it's not
that
a-
he
being
wants.
poly
deal.
and there's piss
unlikely.
orgies. Come
I-
the fuck on.
I don't. I like. Look, dude. Like, initially, that's what I thought, 100%. And I would say, like, again, a lot of people offer their opinions when they cover drama, and nobody else is held to the standard of like, oh, how could you think that, right? We all volunteer our opinions when we cover
You
drama.
presented your coverage as I've got information from both sides, guys. Okay, come and watch
And
my
I
failing
did.
stream. I've got information from both sides, but then you
Okay,
presented a
failing
very
stream,
fucking
but I
one-sided
I make
narrative.
a full, I make an income off of that. All right. Okay. But
Yeah, good luck with that fucking doing a DSP moment, begging for fucking money to keep covering
isn't
content.
that what you do? You do that more than I do, Chud. You do that much more than I do.
I've never once said I'm
You
not going to continue
do.
covering stuff
I-
unless you give me money. That's
Okay.
fucking complete
You
joke.
Pause.
100% beg for money way more than I do.
Okay, I didn't come here to litigate the financial aspects of streamers on the panel. I think we all appreciate
That's a
some
fight
money.
Stardust would lose. So we don't need to go there. That's
well,
for sure.
actually, no. This is a great segue for me. So I'm not going to be making any money tonight. But since we do have a healthy chunk of people in chat, we got like 70 people cross-platform, pushing 80 people cross-platform. We have a gentleman in the community. His name is Cody. Basically, he's going through a rough time right now. His family is a little bit behind on rent. They're very proud people. So they don't really want to set up a GoFundMe. So if any donos from tonight will be going to help him and help his family. They had some medical issues that they got behind on.
He's not even
so
going to
any-
start an OnlyFans with his wife.
Yeah,
And she's
so-
not going to go. She's not going to go get pissed on by 6 dudes for cash.
So
Really?
if
Idea.
using this as a commercial, this is
Crazy.
actually an excellent point. Unless you want Cody to start an OnlyFans, please use the links down on the Twitch and YouTube super chats, all that kind of stuff. 100% of what's coming in tonight will be going to him. So please help Cody not start an OnlyFans. Akano boy, I heard you laughing, and I also felt like you said my name at some point.
Yeah.
Did you have something that you wanted to add to the conversation?
No, I was just
really quick, can I
laughing
just ask a
because-
question? If
Yeah,
is
go on,
this Cody
Sonsel.
guy hot? Is he hot enough for OnlyFans?
He's relatively hot, but that has nothing to do with like whether or not we want him to start an OnlyFans. Okay, we
I
we
was
would
just laughing
prefer-
because.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go on.
No, you
I've
go
had a-
on. I was just going to talk about Cody's hotness level.
Keep
Please
the
take us
fucking
away from
gay
that.
under
Yeah.
control, Sonzel. Fuck.
Yeah.
What's wrong with
I
you?
was gonna say, I was laughing because I think I recall, and Stardust or Chud, one of you guys can confirm this, that I think what Hunter said during his, I was laughing at what Chud said. I think what Hunter said at some point during this controversy was that I didn't really mind the whole setting up an orgy thing because she was going to get paid for it, and I think she said it. I think they said it was like $8,000 or $9,000.
Oh, there's
just like,
two elements
damn,
to
that's
that.
not enough money.
So I have actually seen evidence. I don't know if this is publicized yet, but I believe that Hunter and Carissa agreed to split up on the 28th of May. So that's an important point in this. Now, Hunter announced the divorce on the 7th of June, and on the same day, the 7th of June, Carissa was trying to set up this piss orgy. So there's 2 points to Hunter's position. One, it happened after we agreed to split and after we announced the divorce. And secondly, she was going to get paid a bunch of money for it. According to Carissa, she needed the money so she could pay a deposit so Hunter could move house. So she was willing to get pissed on to get Hunter out of the flat.
Makes
Jesus
sense.
Christ.
Makes.
really?
I mean, if you were in her shoes, married to Hunter, I mean, you could kind of understand, right?
I think that's love. Like, I don't know what you guys are talking about.
Yeah,
but that
that's
sounds
love.
like pure love to me. Willing to get peed on
Look,
for your man.
Would any of
Come
us
on.
not
get him out?
peed on by multiple black guys for the person we love? Think about it, guys.
I don't understand. Is
No,
there no other way?
Econo
Was
boy. I know
Was there
that. I
no other
know.
way? Is it like is the all black no turn down piss orgy the only possible way to make the money? There must be something else that she could try first, right? Do you know what I mean?
okay,
At least normal
I guess
sex.
my question would be
How about
for,
a
like,
job?
people-
How about a job? Have you ever thought of that? Like getting a fucking job? Can we do that?
I guess my question would be like, how much money? I guess, what would be your price? I guess if somebody wanted to like peg you, or something, not filmed, but
You know, I think Andrew is too virtuous a man to allow such a thing to happen.
Mhm.
Stardust for any amount of money.
No
Well,
shit.
I
For
figured
any
that
amount,
about
there's
him,
no
too.
amount of money. No, not.
he does it for
there's
free.
not enough
Stardust.
money on planet Earth for me to worry
He
about.
does it straight for free.
I know that you're
A
thinking
good
of
one.
this in terms of. I know you're thinking of
That's
this in terms of being
That's so
desperate for
brutal.
money,
You got
okay?
me.
I'm not really
trying
that
to be
desperate
brutal.
for
I'm making
money,
a joke.
so I don't really have this thing where I'm like I'm desperate for money. I'd do anything for money. I'm quite comfortable, so I don't really need to consider getting pegged for cash. I don't know.
Well, I
What's
mean,
your
I
price
don't
for
know
some
if it-
weird
is
sex
it-
sack Stardust? Do you want to talk about
What
your?
Is it
about
There's
Well, the
desperation?
idea
I
that
mean-
well,
Yeah, there's no price for me either, but
I mean, I
um,
think most people that
yeah.
do sex work make the calculation. I mean, and Chris, I assume, is similar. Of like, yeah, I'd rather just do sex work than I don't know, go work at some restaurant or something like that, or whatever the alternatives are. I mean, that's
Yeah.
an obvious answer. Obviously,
yeah, it's like
absurd
implying
from
that
like
she's
a normal
like,
person who
desperate for
hears.
it.
Well, yeah, but not necessarily. I think like, are you desperate just to go to your job every day? Like, are you desperate to stream on
Well,
Twitch?
the way
Like,
that
no, I mean, it's just
the
the
way that
job you
Stardust is
prefer.
presenting it right now makes it sound
The
like
job
Carissa
you
was like
prefer?
desperate
What?
for the cash.
How-
Like,
how
she
is that
wasn't
confusing
desperate-
what I said,
No,
Ginger? I
I
don't
didn't. I didn't.
Because
present- I
that's
just-
ridiculous. No, I don't think anybody goes, "Oh, I prefer to get peed on." Like I
No,
don't
no,
know. I just-
Ginger.
Yeah, they do.
I would agree that almost nobody in
She
like
sounded,
a normal.
She sounded a bit excited about it.
Yeah,
Ginger. Come
yeah,
on.
Andrew, one second. Andrew and I are kind of making the same point to a degree, actually, that like obviously most people wouldn't say, I'd rather set up like orgy gangbangs that involve piss as opposed to go work at a restaurant, right? But some people do make that calculation, and obviously, whoever sex workers that do that kind of thing are making that calculation as well. So a lot of the times, it's not
Yeah,
always
waitress, secretary, gangbang with 6 black guys and getting peed on. I mean,
Look,
these are the decisions we have to worry about
This
in life
is
now.
look. This is the problem with this position. It's very easy to make fun of that logic because it's such an abnormal thing to do. I agree. It's not typical for that to be a fucking preference of you to have, right? But
Because there's
as
zero
long as that-
virtue. There's
as
zero
long as that
virtue.
preference might
Well, it's
exist,
unsanitary,
people should
isn't
be
it?
allowed to do it. I mean, if you want to get paid to do that, then go for it, right?
Why should they be allowed to do it, Econo Boy? Why is that a good thing?
Because we live in a fucking free society. This is America
Think of the
where I
GDP.
live.
Well, we don't.
Um,
we don't
Become a
live in a free.
fascist.
We don't live in a free society. You're lying through your fucking teeth. We live in a
Mm,
society
America's
where they
the
can
freest
lock you.
country in the world.
We live in
do
a society where they can
Big Papa
lock you
fascist.
in your fucking home for up to 2 years. We live in a society where the government can come in and
Like
do all
house
kinds
arrest?
of
What are you talking
crackdowns. What
about?
are you talking about?
Listen,
Right?
okay.
What do you mean?
I
Were
think
you
This is a
locked in
free
your- Were
society.
you locked
Andrew-
in your home
Andrew-
for 2 years, Andrew?
No,
I
you
mean,
Was it
can.
a
You live in a
firearms
society
charge or
where
something?
that can be the process during the lockdowns. We saw that people could be under quarantine and businesses could be shut down and all of these other types
who-
of things.
but
It's not a
I'm
free
just- oh,
society.
God,
But
let's
no,
not
no,
do
but
a
I'm
fucking
asking
COVID
though, who
conversation.
was locked in their home for 2 years during COVID?
Well, if you can't,
Australians.
if you can't
So-
go,
no, no,
yeah,
no, no. I'm
people
talking.
in-
He's talking about America specifically.
yes,
who was locked
even
home,
even
who
even
was-
in
who
America.
America was locked in their home.
Shut
for 2
up
years.
so I can talk, lady. I'm trying to answer your question. So to answer you directly, just so that you understand, when there's BLM rioters outside your fucking door, you're locked in your fucking house, don't you think? Do you think that you're
so
locked
they were
in your
locked in their
fucking
home for
house?
2 years?
Well, when
They're
the
gonna get
government
you?
when the
Or-
government won't dispatch the police, your local government refuses to dispatch the police, and motherfuckers are walking by throwing bottles through your window, you're pretty much shut in, yeah. And if you shut down every business, every small business, you shut down the beaches and you shut down all of the infrastructure and tell people they need to stay at home, yeah, that's a fucking pretty draconian measure. What the fuck are you talking about?
and
Okay.
also,
Pause, because we
Yeah.
have a
Sorry.
dono for the charity. Basically, someone loves Chud's beard, and I agree as well. So, Chud, your beard is looking beautiful tonight. So, thank you for bringing
That
it
supports
onto the show.
charity. Great, good stuff.
Yeah. So, okay. And then this kind of brings us to the first question naturally. So, I kind of want everybody to engage with the first question. And I'll move it to the second question as we kind of progress. Should anyone in our
Well, wait,
society...
I want to get back to this because he made a claim that this ought to happen because we live in a free society, which isn't an argument. Why should we have a preference
Well,
for a free
And
society,
also,
Econo Boy?
should
I guess
anybody
this
be
is-
engaged in sex work is the
Yeah,
question,
it's-
and you guys are
it's
engaging with
topical.
it right now. So go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, so it's not, again, I said in my opening statement, it's not a matter of like, it's a righteous thing to engage in sex work. It's just a matter of if the principle is, I think this is a decent principle for society, that if you as a consenting adult want to engage in sex work for money, then that should be a freedom that you have. It doesn't seem to result.
It's just question
It's
begging.
not really
I don't-
question begging.
I
I
don't
mean, it
care
doesn't
if
seem to
you-
result in
Why should I
terrible
care if
harms.
you think that it's a good preference for society? That's
you're
a
lucky he's
presupposition.
even answering your
That's-
question
well,
because
I
your
mean,
basis for it didn't
you
make
did
any
ask me a
sense.
question.
That's a presupposition. That's a presupposition that should be prescribed to everybody else. There's no virtue in it. Do you think that it's virtuous to be a sex worker? Yes or no?
Well, but the matter of something being virtuous
Answer
or
my
not,
fucking question before you go into a spiel. Yes or
I
no? Is
am
it
answering-
virtuous?
no, but it's
Give me
literally
the
not a yes or no
qualifier
question.
after you answer. Give me the qualifier after you answer. Yes, it is
Okay.
a yes or no question.
It's not.
No, it's not, because
Whether
it's
it's
neutral
virtuous
to be a sex worker.
worker. So
It's a
so-
neutral act to be a
It's
sex worker. It's
neutral.
not good or bad. Okay, it's just a
Okay,
thing
I
that
didn't
you
ask
should be
that.
able to
I
do.
didn't ask even if it was good or bad. I asked you if there was virtue in it.
If the absence of virtue is, I guess, not being virtuous, then no, it's not virtuous to be a sex worker. But it's not
You
bad
can have
to be a sex
you can
worker
have
either.
neutrality with absence of virtue, but that doesn't mean that we need to go directly.
answered your
over to
question,
con-
Andrew,
to
directly.
consequentialism. Why is it under this presupposition we ought to go ahead and decide that sex work is good because it's your preference?
That's not what I said. I feel like you're not listening. Sex work
Well,
is not a good or a bad thing.
And
principally,
demonstrate that.
inherently.
Demonstrate it. Demonstrate that it's
Okay,
not.
so if you want to get into a super meta ethical conversation, we can. In general, my position on sex work is that it doesn't appear to be the case that if we allow people to engage in sex work, that society has significant harms associated with that. Insofar as that's true, the freedom to be a sex worker should be, allowed. It should be
Well,
protected.
first of all, it does appear that there are significant harms to being involved in sex work. So let me ask you a direct question. Would you buy
Oh,
a
really?
prostitute?
What are those direct harms?
Would you buy a prostitute, Econo Boy?
I do not think I would buy a prostitute, no.
Why?
Because I don't want to pay for sex. I can get sex for free.
Even if you couldn't get sex for free, would you pay for a prostitute then?
Maybe.
Well, yes or no? Would you or wouldn't you?
I don't know. I've never been in
I
a
don't
position
know.
where I both
So
can't get
is this
sex.
just going to be a
and-
conversation where you know anything? Do you know anything? Okay, are you ever
Well,
going to give me any
I knew the
answers?
answer to the many questions you answered before.
No,
right?
you just went on a long rambling diatribe.
It
You didn't
wasn't
actually
long. I
say
think
anything.
the timer would show it was probably about 10 or 15
So let's
seconds.
so diving into this, I think that the
The
reason
attention
you wouldn't
spans are much
buy-
lower nowadays with our
I
generation.
think the reason you wouldn't buy a prostitute is because you think it's not virtuous to do. Would you agree
no,
with
it's
that?
just, again, it's because to buy a prostitute means I'm giving money for sex. I
So?
can get sex for no money, so I might as well not spend the money on sex.
So it's not going to be transactional for you to date women? You just like what? You go on fucking Tinder and hope that some chick will just show up and bone you? Or yeah, there's
Well, I
always
mean,
a money. There's
Why
always
can't
money
progressives just
transaction,
admit
right?
That there's something a bit seedy and bad about going to a
because
prostitute?
because all because
there
all
is.
liberals are bad faith. They won't admit what's obvious. They're not going to buy prostitutes because it's not virtuous.
obvious,
That's why.
guys.
Well,
I
it's
don't
actually
understand what you mean
it's-
by
it's
virtue. Like
seedy.
you're not even explaining your position. Like what's the bad thing about, hey, I want to go and have sex and that includes money? Why does the money make it bad?
So if we're talking about virtues, I would look at like Christian virtues, which are all the things which you operate on in society. You adopt
But
them.
that's
and then
begging
just
the
reject
question: why
God
is Christian
portion.
virtue good?
You haven't answered my question for your basis of why freedom ought to be the preference.
I did.
Answer that first.
I
No, you just said
established a
seems to-
utilitarian framework
You know,
that
you
says
just
that
said
the
it seems to be.
consequences. I said
Just saying
that the
seems to be
consequences
doesn't mean anything.
Well,
I
well,
forgot
Andrew, I
Big
mean,
Papa
if
Fascist
I
is
again,
incapable of having a conversation without
I
talking
can
about
I can
fucking meta
repeat
ethics.
the
Fuck
answer.
me.
It seems like
Yeah,
you're not
repeat
listening.
it.
Yeah,
I
repeat it.
established the principle that it doesn't really seem like there's many societal harms associated.
Yeah, seems
with
doesn't mean
being-
anything. What does that mean?
Okay,
It
there's
seems
not a lot
like.
of there's not a lot of okay. For instance, if we were to say intuitively, is society around us, just looking around us, falling fucking apart because there's a lot more people on OnlyFans? No, it just seems like there's a lot of people that found a niche way to make money. Right? I don't think
Wait.
we don't see society completely
I mean,
deconstructing.
look, I just
Society
I'm not-
falling
I'm not-
apart's not our standard, dude. What are you talking about?
That was an
I'm-
intuitive
I'm-
pump.
I'm
The
not- I'm not
empirics,
like-
the
I don't like
empirics
necessarily
of
agree with Big Papa Fascist, but I just think you're delusional if you're not going to admit. But society isn't falling apart, but there is like an
Okay.
ever-increasing sexualization of our society that
Okay,
I think
but-
is worthy of some consideration and
Sure,
concern.
sure.
mean,
It's not that
Econoboy-
that's not worthy of consideration. I completely agree. It's just a matter of is the end result of you say a sexualization of society or like a sexual liberalization, let's say, is that bad for society or not? And I'm just saying the cost benefit analysis, it just doesn't seem like
Okay,
it's
well,
really
in
that
20,
bad.
so tell me
Guys,
this. In
So
2020,
hold on. Just
Yeah.
hold on 1 second because we have another dono in the name of charity. So I'm going to apologize
Do it.
in advance because it is kind of mean. Econoboy lets other men name his kids. Stardust looks like Spike from Land Before Time. BPF is built like he hits his wife. Ginger is angry that she wasn't in Carissa's place. That was for $10. So
I mean,
I'm
that's-
sorry if that was mean. But it was
Got all
$10
of us.
towards a good cause. If anybody else has money, do it. I do want to continue, but HP literally hasn't said anything. Do you have anything that you want to add?
True. So let's do this. Pardon me initially for not contributing to the earlier discussion, as I didn't feel super comfortable with the details of Hunter's life such that I could contribute in like authentic way. But I do have some issues with Andrew's take on his sort of Christian virtue ethics situation here. So Econ Boy seems to be saying something like, we shouldn't, everyone can have their own virtues. If you don't like prostitution, if you don't like sex when it's between two consenting adults and it's paid for, that's totally fine. People can have their own varying degrees of what they think virtue is, but we live in a pluralistic society. And so what we want to do is we want to allow for people to engage in these kind of behaviors if they value it themselves, regardless of what your personal values are.
why?
And so, why would we do that? Because we think
Yeah.
that that's what's best for
What do you
society.
mean we don't think that? Why
Well,
should
we do.
why should secular rule be the rule? Why should secularism be the
Hey,
rule and not
HP,
my
unless
version?
you're going to reference the
Oh,
Bible,
not my
I don't think
version of
Andrew's gonna
ethics.
That's
accept it.
fine. I understand that you have your own
To be
version
fair.
or own values.
No,
and I
it's
have
not my own version, my own values. I asked you a
You-
direct question. Why should
The values of God
why ought we
himself.
prefer that? Why ought we prefer your preferences?
Because I think that what I'm referring
Because
to.
you think that. Yeah, that's what I
Absolutely, that's
thought.
what it's going to break down to. If you think there's
That's
some
what it
like,
always is going to
okay,
break down
you think
to.
there's,
Is
you
because
think there's some
so.
fucking algorithm such that we're going to be able to plug in the answers for this? That moral
Yes.
sentiments are going to be
Actually, there
naturally
is an
computed?
algorithm for it.
There
The
is an
Orthodox
algorithm.
Bible,
I don't
don't
know
you
what-
understand?
You're gonna, like,
It's
read
the
I
Orthodox
don't
Bible,
think the Bible's
not
an
the
algorithm.
Baptist
Bad
one,
guy
not
is
the
gonna tell
Methodist
you
one,
what the
not the
right thing to do
Catholic
is.
one. It's only his version of Christianity.
Yeah,
That's the
it's
kind of
fucking
ethics that we
retarded,
can
and I get
accept,
it.
and
That's
that's
totally
why
cool that you wanna
we
have
shouldn't have
those
a free
virtues.
society because
Totally
there's only
cool you
one
wanna have
form
those
of
virtues.
ethics, and it's his very specific form. As he sucks down his 45th fucking cigarette of the fucking podcast. Let's fucking
To
go.
project,
Look, there's
to
nothing
project
against
your
smoking in the
virtues
Bible,
on the
guys.
rest of us is what the issue is. And so what Econ Boy is trying to say is that if you have two consenting adults who want to participate in a sexual act for an exchange of money, they should be able to do that. There's
Yeah,
no,
you
there's
still
no
haven't
harm
demo-
to either party.
So
So
okay,
we-
let,
wait,
let me
wait,
repeat
you-
your argument to you. Let me just
What?
repeat it. Let me repeat your argument back
Sure.
to you to make sure
I'm
that
sure
I
it'll
don't
be,
have it
I'm
wrong.
sure it'll be charitable. Please continue. Yeah.
Well, it'll be maximum charitable. We ought to value these things because you value these things.
No. I think that my preferences, the ones that I'm referring to, I think that they will lead to a better society. I do.
So we ought to value these things because you value these things, you fucking idiot.
Okay,
There's no
look, let me-
non-secular
look.
way to talk about where your
Stupid.
values come from.
Dumb
you
are
retard.
you, dude?
Come on.
What are you have the exact same
Chill, man, come
position?
on.
What are you talking
Listen,
about?
I've got a
No,
question. I've
no,
got a
but
question
you
to clarify this.
contingent. No fucking shit.
I
I've
can
got a
use
question that's gonna
transcendental
clarify this.
categorization to show you and
can't.
demonstrate my position. I can.
So demonstrate why
okay.
your position has
he
oughts
doesn't
Forget about
he doesn't
Justin.
believe his things are right.
I just-
He has the word of God on his side.
I
Okay,
want
Fucking
to-
revelation.
Hold
always
on,
leads
it
to this
sounds
argument.
like-
values are
Let's
like
pause.
antinatalism.
Pause,
like,
pause, or I'm
if
gonna
we're gonna
start
do
muting.
fucking
There's no empirical
guys,
evidence
I
of
get
any
it.
long-term harm
forget
for
the empirical
legalization or
evidence.
decriminalization of prostitution.
God.
We can look at several studies of several
Everybody let him
countries
go.
who do have decriminalization.
Okay,
Some-
forget the studies. Forget the studies. HB
Why?
and Econoboy, I just want to ask you, okay? Do you think
Yes,
that a
sir.
woman with a gaped asshole with 6 black guys pissing into it, as long as money's
Mhm.
changing hands, is that acceptable in society?
Yeah, I mean, if they're consenting
course it
adults
is.
and they want to do
Okay.
it, then why not?
What kind of retard?
I mean,
question-
do you think? I mean, I guess my question to Ched,
I'm
like,
ju-
Ched,
well,
would-
I mean,
do
it's,
you
you
think?
know, what do you mean? It's not a
it's
retard
definitely
question.
not
No,
acceptable.
no, but Ched,
I'm just
okay,
asking a question because
no,
I'm like, you
Chud.
know, if you are you willing to go that far? Are you willing to say
Chud,
anything goes
the
for a
question,
financial transaction?
Chud, again, the question isn't like, is that acceptable? Like, again, that's not an activity I would participate in. The question for you
course
should
not.
be, would you make something like that illegal? Should people not be allowed to do that? Right? And I think that's
Yes.
a more difficult.
answer-
Andrew, I'm
the
not.
answer is yes.
Andrew. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth. So listen, I'm not asking you a question. I'm asking Chud a question. Okay.
Wait, how
Chud, do
many
you think
we have?
acts like that
This is-
should be
this is
illegal?
tricky. Listen, I've got to say, I'm not like a virtue ethics guy. I'm not like a fucking. I don't give a shit about this nerd stuff. Okay, it's boring as far as I'm concerned. I'm trying to make the
Okay, well-
conversation interesting. Okay, but what I would say is, I think that there are some acts, in all seriousness, that do cost a level of extremity. That even if we don't see any harm from it, we still probably ought to say, okay, that's too far. We need to put a stop to that.
No,
okay?
but Chud, the thing
Because
is,
it
I would
feels
agree
bad?
that,
Because it
like,
feels
yeah,
good to you?
going and getting several guys to pee in your gaped asshole is, I would say that that's personally a bit too far. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't recommend people do that. But the question of,
People,
like,
it's fine.
should
It's
you have
cool.
the freedom to do that? It's not an activity I would encourage people to do, but should you have the freedom to do that if you want to do that? Sure, I think it's a much harder position to defend the idea that that should be illegal. It's like, how do you enforce it? There's so many
Yeah, it's
empirical
about
problems and stuff like
protecting
that.
The
autonomy.
same way we enforced it for most of our history. What do you mean?
Which is to say, it wasn't particularly enforced. It just was under the table.
What are you
It
talking
was
about?
particularly
You
enforced.
think sex work? So, they called the
Yeah.
oldest profession for a
Generally,
reason,
They-
Andrew.
You know what they did? They put people in
sex
jail.
work's been around before the
Yeah,
Bible.
but it's never gone away. There has
Let
been
me-
no decline in sex work. The
let me-
history of
let me
that's gonna
finish.
happen.
Let me finish my point. My point
hard.
is that the United States operated for most of its history with illegalizations for prostitution, except in some states and some jurisdictions. But for the most part, it's always been outlawed. It was only Larry Flint and his crusade
And it's
that
never gone away.
allowed
The
Hustler
history
and
of
all
the
of this. It's never been like this before, ever. Never, ever has it been.
You
has there
realize
been
when you
sex
talk about
work like this.
prostitution
Here, let me help
versus
you out with
like
something.
Let
sex work in
Sansol finish.
general.
He hasn't
Don't
talked
need-
before.
Wait 1 second. You're conflating prostitution with like pornography, which are going to be two different things. Pornography.
What's difference?
Well,
I-
Andrew would say they should both be illegal.
I understand that you think that they're the same, but you're talking about like the legal aspect of this. Do you think that we've ever had like in the past like 50, 60 years that we've had as strict rules as like in the 1920s on like filming pornography or shit like that?
Yeah, there was way stricter rules. Of course, there's even public decency laws were much stricter. But moving into your actual empirics, let's talk
There's
about.
like pornos from the 70s, dog.
Yeah, let's talk about empirics.
Yeah, I understand that there was pornos.
It
from
wasn't
the
illegal.
70s.
Empirics.
What's
That's what
your
this panel
point?
needs.
Like literally, what's your fucking point, man?
You're
What's
saying
your
that
point?
it was illegal you said it was
I
illegal
didn't say
50
that.
years ago.
No, I said it was much more
I'm sorry, am I
rigorously
having a fucking
enforced.
stroke? Did he
refocus,
not
though.
just say it was fucking illegal that there were public decency laws?
No,
No,
yeah,
he
and
said
there were
illegal.
public decency laws, and then I gave you
Prostitution
examples
didn't go away at all.
of some areas in which some of those laws were relaxed. It's the same thing with gambling right now, Sansel. A lot of states don't allow any gambling, right? And then there's some states that do. Right?
So I have a
Yes.
question for
Yeah.
you.
Go for it. I just don't, I,
Andrew, I have a question just for you. I'm just curious. What can you give me some examples or what you would point to as to why the decriminalization of prostitution would be a bad thing, the negative effects, or your argument for why that should not happen?
Well, first we would have to establish whether or not you consider OnlyFans to be prostitution work, which I do, which is
I think it's
selling.
sex work. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's
Yeah.
start with this. This paper is done by, I can't send it to you, unfortunately, because of the way my streamer setup is. Maybe there's a backdoor I can do it. I don't know. But this paper is from ResearchGate, which shows on the OnlyFans content, over 4 terabytes of leaked OnlyFans content was found just in February. They're saying that almost all OnlyFans content gets leaked at some point. That's what this paper shows. Now, can you explain to me, if you were in school, I don't know what your name is, but let's just assume you're little Johnny and you're in school, do you think there's any negative ramifications if, like, let's say Clarissa Avallone's children are getting bullied at school because a bully walks over and says, hey, look at your mom getting gangbanged by 6 dudes, and then they piss on her. That's fucking, they're pissing all over your mom. That's fucking crazy. You think that it's no big deal. Cool.
Do you think
Fine.
so? You think like an increase in bullying? You would say that's one of the
no. It's not just an increase in bullying. It's a decrease in the virtue of fucking humanity, the humanity that's around you. It creates avenues. It creates avenues for people to move into things that we've never really dealt with on a large
you're using
societal
really big
scale.
language here. So let's stick to the concrete example, right? So you said that, for example, someone could see their mom naked and get bullied in school, and this could lead to like
that's one example. One example of many. So yes,
it sounds like what you're
that.
concerned about is cybersecurity and things being leaked, not the act of sex work itself, right?
Because you wouldn't
I
care.
doubt that.
Like,
So you don't think
one
that-
second.
Hang
you
on,
don't think
that
that
doesn't
sex
make
work
sense.
necessarily is bad?
Hang on.
Would you
Wait
care?
a minute. If none of
Wait.
that stuff was leaked, you'd be fine with
Bro,
sex work?
that doesn't make sense.
No, it does make sense. You just said
let
that
me
the issue
respond.
is-
Do you
Sure,
want me to
BBM,
respond?
I'd love
let's
to hear
assume
whatever
a
you have to
world.
say.
Let's assume a world where there is like Loctite fucking perfect security on this, and like the schools, they don't allow any bullying, and all of the kids know that they're not allowed to bully, or they'll be like executed on the spot. You know, there's like zero tolerance for fucking bullying.
Nice.
Okay, would you be okay with the sex work then?
Well, I wouldn't, because I would still
Yeah,
say
of
it
course.
isn't-
And don't bring up those points as if you actually
it
care
doesn't.
about
It
those
doesn't.
arguments.
This is an internal critique. Do you understand the difference?
Okay, I'm gonna.
What's an internal
I'm gonna,
critique?
I'm going to
Regardless of what
interject.
I believe, I'm talking
I'm-
about your worldview. Now back to what this gentleman is saying.
Hold on, Andrew. I need to interject. I got some super chats and donos, which are of course going to our buddy Cody, who needs help with his rent and all that kind of stuff. We'll let the conversation go. I think, just to summarize this, not interjecting my own point, I think that what Andrew is saying is virtue is the main problem. I just Googled virtue, which is behavior showing high moral standards. It's not that, as far as I can tell, it's not specifically that the porn is getting leaked and then therefore it's getting to the kids and then therefore kids are getting bullied. What's happening is you have a social enforcement of parents participating in stuff that is viewed of low moral character that is then used as a social cudgel to beat children. So I think that would happen pretty much no matter what, even if the parents were
Parents should act
participating
to a
in the
higher
behavior.
moral standard. I think is a pretty reasonable argument, right?
But let's
at the
read
very
some-
least, surely.
Let's read some donos. Let's read some donos before we get back into it. Base God Flashy, the AK was just a perk, not the reason Carissa wanted to do it. The main draw was several gentlemen and a gallon of a certain fluid. Thanks for that.
It's
Then
for charity, guys.
it is. Israeli psychologist Sam Vadnik has explored the question of how has sexual liberation affected subsequent generations. He concludes that it isn't good because hookup culture is the norm, but people want longer-term relationships. So apparently there's some social fallout from the normalization of sex. Finally, Zonia says, we can acknowledge that people can make their own decisions while still recognizing that sex work is less than ideal. They can do it, but we don't want to encourage it. We want better for the average person.
Yeah, can I also point out one red herring in the room, and I'll let you make your argument, dude. I'm not trying to get away from it. I keep getting cut off while we're doing it. So I just want to point out this one thing. There was also a message released where Clarissa Avallone said that if for enough money, she'd fuck a camel. Can we acknowledge that she released a DM saying that she would fuck a camel for enough money? Are you going to argue that that's virtuous? What about that for freedom?
We don't care if
nobody's
What about
saying
that?
that. We're saying the
What
virtue
about
lies
that
in
for your
look,
freedom.
The
Do you
virtue
want freedom
lies.
so that why don't they have the freedom to fuck camels, bro?
Sure. I mean,
Why is that a
bestiality is legal
problem?
in a lot of states. We can talk about whether bestiality is okay because, you know, there are other arguments.
Of course you want to talk about whether or not bestiality is okay. Why
Well, no,
wouldn't
you brought it
Look
up,
at
dumbass.
you.
Are you you literally just brought it up. You want me to comment on it or not?
I didn't bring up
don't
that
give a
it was
fuck about-
okay. I just assumed you would
And I'm
think it
telling
wasn't
you it's
okay.
not okay, but not for the reasons that sex work in itself is bad. The virtues we're talking about are the ones that allow for autonomy, humans, adults that consent to make their own decisions, and other people not getting in the way of their own autonomy. That's what Econoboy and some of the others are talking about. We're talking about different virtues. You value
Then let me ask you this.
Christian purity or whatever, and we
Yeah.
value people having the free will.
So
to
let me
engage
ask
in
you
the
this.
things they
If the camel willingly
Okay.
walks over and starts trying to bone Carissa Avallone, should she do it?
It doesn't
there's
imply
enough money?
consent from the camel, so no, I don't think
How
so.
would it not imply consent if the camel
Because-
walks over and has a
That doesn't
boner and tries to
necessarily-
bang her?
Because we don't have access to the camel's experiential states. That's why. We can't say that it necessarily is consenting. We just
can't
can't.
believe
There's no
we're
reason to
arguing
do
about
that.
this.
We don't need to talk about whether it's okay to fuck animals. We can just skip that. You brought it up.
Why,
I know
why
it's
do we
like
get to skip that? Why do you just get to skip that? I don't want to
because I
skip that.
think- Well,
I want to
it's
know
not like
if
I'm
you think
running
it's
from it.
all right.
I
What's
don't
your
think
arguments for
it's
it?
worthwhile to talk about it. It has very little to do with what we're talking about.
No, she
You're
released
trying to come up with the
DM.
most extreme
Bro,
example.
she released a DM saying
I don't
that
care.
she, for enough money, she would get
I
fucked by a
genuinely
camel.
don't care
It was
about
actually Kingston
Clarissa
the
or whatever
Bull,
the
just
fuck
to
her
be
name
clear.
is. I don't give a
So
fuck
not her.
about Hunter and her wife and how immature and how they couldn't handle a relationship. I don't care. What I want to talk about
That's
is
fine,
whether
but
or
that's
not
the
it
most
makes sense.
interesting part of this, and you guys are
I
not
know it's
arguing
the
about
most
whether or
interesting
not.
for you, Chud, because that's your whole deal. I get it. But I'm more interested in a conversation about whether it makes sense to decriminalize or legalize sex work. Now, we can look at other countries where they have done this and see what effects it's had on their society. You guys are worried about this sort of all of a sudden society will crumble because we're encouraging people to not act virtuous, which I don't see any empirical
Consequences
evidence
aren't my
that's the
highest
case.
paradigm. That's your paradigm. It's not
It's
my
not
highest paradigm.
You don't know my fucking paradigm. So
Is
don't,
it consequentialism or not?
I'm not a consequentialist, no.
Then
I
what?
don't-
Then why do we care about how it goes for other countries if you're not
Oh.
looking at consequences?
So-
Listen,
I
hey,
can't-
Drew, with
no,
all due
pardon,
respect,
hold
you
up,
don't give
hold
a
up.
fuck about your opinions
Hold
on
up.
anything. You're a fucking. I'm not trying to be rude, but like, no one cares about your fucking ethics. Okay? Can we get back to talking about the actual topic? I'm interested for you to
topic
weigh in.
is about ethics, you dumb fuck. Are you joking? No one gives a fuck about how much you care about whether
No
Hunter
one
is a
cares.
cuck or-
No one's here to watch you fucking wax lyrical about what your perspective is on ethics. No one fucking
Lyrical?
cares.
We
okay?
kind of
I'm
are. It
trying-
is a political
No
show.
one
Are
gives
you
a shit.
joking? At
I'm
least
just telling
Andrew,
you.
who's a
No, I'm not
fucking
fucking
idiot,
joking. I'm
at
telling
least
you, no one
Andrew is
cares.
engaging in the
Everyone is
conversation.
thinking. No one
Look,
gives a shit about this guy's
Judd,
take on ethics.
I'm sorry
Can we
that the
get back
words
to
are too
talking
big for
about
you.
the
I totally
secret
get it.
all-black
I totally
fucking
get
piss
it.
orgy?
You're too stupid to
Shut up.
engage. I totally get it. But Andrew seemed completely able to engage in what I was talking about. And just because you're eager to jerk off to whether Hunter Avallone is a cuck doesn't mean the rest of us are here for that conversation. Fucking
After
blow
this
me.
panel,
That's
no
why
one's
we
gonna
were
fucking
here.
care
Okay, you know
about
what?
what
Fine.
you said.
Please,
No one fucking
talk
cares
about how you
your
don't
fucking
like
ethics, my
Stardust.
friend.
Go ahead.
Okay?
Go ahead, Chad. My
I
bad.
was
I
here
Let's
to
didn't
talk
see
about
pause.
you
Let's
fucking
pause.
being
It's getting
upset
away
with
from us.
Stardust.
It's
My
getting
bad,
away
dude.
from
Go ahead.
us. It's getting away from us. So
We're not losing
I
the
am,
plot.
Some of us
I
don't know why
have,
the fuck
hold
we're
on.
here.
Okay, so I have a split perspective on this, and I'm going to articulate it really quickly. I think we are here to talk about the ethics a little bit. I get that it's boring and dry, but this is Twitch and YouTube politics.
But
We
we've
talk
been
about
talking
hold on,
about
hold on,
for 20 minutes.
Chudge. I
Come
want to
on now.
hear.
You spent
I want
30
to hear.
minutes talking about how
Guys,
you don't like that Hunter's wife gets
HP.
peed on. I don't give a fuck about that.
We're gonna mute. It's fine.
Well, most people do, unfortunately.
We'll that's okay. I'll handle it. Okay. So
Wow.
I think we are here to talk about the ethics a little bit because we are talking about whether or not sex work should be, available to society. Although I do think we're at an impasse now, and I'm sympathetic to Chud that we're going to be at an impasse for another 20 minutes. Because basically what Andrew is saying, as far as I can understand, is that we should be pursuing higher virtue in our society, and then we do have some people who are appearing to utilitarianism or consequentialism or social well-being and all that kind of stuff, and we're just not going to agree because we're operating from different moral philosophies. We're not going to. We haven't resolved it on previous panels. We're not going to resolve it tonight. So I'm going to move to the next question, which is still related to the first question. I'm going to ask it, and then I'm actually going to ask Chud if there is something that he thinks that we should be spending our time on in a better way. So the second question was, should monogamous couples be able to participate in sex work because they're effectively, doing a pro-social behavior, but then also advertising it to society, which could be viewed as antisocial. Does a monogamous couple doing sex work change anything? And then Chud,
I
if
vote to
there's
skip.
something, we can vote to skip.
Because we're
in
gonna
just a
just
second.
rehash the exact same last 30 minutes on these next two questions.
Well,
basically.
That's what happens. That's what happens.
Then
The
yeah,
problem
then
is
Chud,
Andrew's
tell
working
us.
from a premise of Christian ethics, and unless you're going to suddenly start turning Christian, you're obviously arguing from some sort of utilitarian, consequentialist perspective. All I'm saying is, no one cares about your individual perspective. No one's going to fucking get anywhere with this. Andrew, are you going to all of a sudden accept degeneracy in society? Yes or no?
Of course not.
So I don't know. Like we can continue talking about it, and I'll just sit back and not say anything. But I don't know. Maybe we should talk about something a bit more
Well, Chud,
spicy.
so hold on. You're saying that the topics that we picked tonight aren't of value for the time. So what topic would you want to talk about tonight?
Well,
no,
he was
look,
talking
look, I don't
about
want-
it.
Do you want to get back to
yeah,
the
we went-
camels? Was
well,
that
the thing is
important part of the
listen,
evening?
with all due respect, I do feel bad for HP because obviously he wants to talk about something else, and that's fine. But I'm just telling you, as a content fucking brain motherfucker, what people want to see. That's all.
Sure.
Okay.
That may be
So-
true. That may be correct that in general the audience is less interested in, or more interested in the drama and less interested in the conversation Andrew and I were having. I'm just going off of the questions that were given to me.
Well,
and
we can
what I
have
thought
this
the discussion was about.
Well, we'll have this discussion later then, man.
We should.
But
We
let's
should
get back
fucking
to
do
this.
Okay,
That's
then
fine.
actually, then these two questions kind of get into, I guess, a little bit more of the spice. Should moms, people who have children, participate in any kind of sex work? We were kind of breaking that can open a second ago.
True.
And then also, are there limits to the sex work that people should participate in and still expect some level of respect from polite society?
Wait, which
open it
one?
back up.
I think both of these are going to be really like contentious topics. Which one are we doing first? Or you asked
Sonzo, would you want your mom to fuck dudes for
Yeah.
money?
Yes.
Listen, Andrew, I'm probably going to agree with you on this one. I don't think that if you're a mother, you should be doing
Okay,
that.
great. O'Connell boy, would you
Why
want
not?
your mom? Would you want your mom to fuck dudes for money?
Yes.
Would I
Who
want
said
that?
yes? Who said yes?
HP
Okay,
did.
there-
This is going to be
HP,
a
let's
fun
go.
panel, y'all.
Bro, if
Okay,
she
okay,
gives me
now
a
we're
better
talking.
standard of
Now we're
living and I
talking.
get the new shoes when I go back to school in 9th grade, fuck yes, my mom can fuck with dudes. I don't give a fuck at all. I want my mom to have a flourishing sex life and be economically well off. And if she thinks this is the means to that, fucking suck some dicks, mom.
Damn, that's the hot take.
Fucking base.
That is
Well,
hot.
What's the problem?
But,
Why am I
okay, but the thing
because
is,
I'm
so
not
you're an
fucking with my
adult
mom
and you
has
can make that
sex, or-
decision. You're an adult and you can make that decision. Fair play to you. I don't agree personally, but I think the problem is if the kid is younger, they're not going to have the ability to understand and conceptualize that. So
Yes.
it's about having an abundance of caution. So you make sure that don't put yourself in a position where you're kind of disappointing your child by doing something that is going to, upset them later down the line. I don't know. I just think that's my personal
Yeah, I
take.
think you do have to be more careful when you're engaging in that line of work. You have to be very careful about separating that line of work from parts of your life, especially when your kids are young, and it could potentially have effects on their peers, things like that. I think those are things to take into effect, and it can get murky. But I don't think it's necessary that a mother cannot engage in all forms of sex work just because she has children. We can think of extreme cases of intimacy coaches or sex psychologists who do engage in light sex work in terms of, like, for example, there are people with severe physical disabilities or mental disabilities that can't participate in sexual activity the way we can because we can just go out there and be social. So they actually, as sort of therapists, serve to perform sex work with those people who aren't necessarily capable. And I think that's a virtuous thing to do. And I think that those kinds of people can be mothers and can be
So would you
married.
would
still
you
engaged in
also
that work, and it's okay.
would you also be cool if your dad was engaged in homosexual sex work for money as well? Would that be okay with you? Are you like,
Yeah,
yeah,
'cause I
that would
don't
be
see
cool with you too?
homosexuality is inherently bad. Yeah, I do. I think that's
Yeah,
fine.
and all of your aunts and uncles, that would be fine too. So you could just
Why
go
would
walk
adding
around.
my aunts or uncles change my answer? Of course, yes.
They came from
Yes,
a
of course.
long
Just like the
line
whole
of
sex
sex
Wait,
work.
wait,
So tell me what's wrong. Just the
Generational.
fact that it sounds
Wait,
absurd
but-
because you're not.
Okay, but
Not a
if
fucking
some fella
dickhead.
if some fella is in a wheelchair and needs to get his rocks off, okay, I think we've got to accept that something needs to be done. And if in a medicinal way, some nurse comes along and jerks them off, I don't know if I consider that sex work in the same way that
That is
a nurse
absolutely
turns
correct.
down.
There are actual clinics where people will go.
Well,
These are
but hold
trivia-
on, but HP,
Okay,
to Chud's point, it's
what?
not the same kind of sex work. Like, it's definitely very different
Well,
contextually,
so
right?
what I said was I'll give an extreme example of where someone might appear virtuous for the sex work they engage in. It may not be
Right.
typical, but the idea that it's not sex work is just kind of feels like you guys are just cutting that
Okay,
out because it's
I'd
not
actually
convenient.
like to push for a concession for a big papa fascist, okay? You got some vegetable in a wheelchair that needs to get the rocks off, okay? And they can't, and no one wants to fuck them. Big papa fascist, what do we do about them?
Well, you said they're vegetables, so you don't do
That-
anything
that
about
doesn't
them.
work 'cause they wouldn't have the experience
he's-
of enjoying
But
the
they
Hey,
said
you
you
know
said
what
in a
it
wheelchair,
is,
okay?
guys,
They
calm
can
down.
Paralyzed
enjoy
from the
it,
neck
but they're
down.
like fucking paralyzed, yeah.
I actually
Paralyzed from the
think
neck down,
BPF
doesn't get to
would
participate
But
in
their dick
intimacy.
works.
that person
Intimacy is
getting
a really
any
important
sex
part of
work,
people's
yeah.
mental health. How do we do? Can
Stardust.
they participate
Bro,
with?
I can't listen.
Hold
You're all
on,
talking
hold on.
over each other.
Star, you wanted to share something with the class?
Yeah, no, I do think that BPF would be against that person engaging in that type of activity. It doesn't matter if like they're disabled and they can't have sex.
Yeah, why would it?
with
Why would them
anybody
being
else.
disabled
Yeah.
suddenly
doesn't
change
change the
anything?
Well, they might not have
Yeah.
the ability to participate in that kind of intimacy, and that kind of intimacy can be really beneficial for someone's psychological health. And so they have things like sex psychologists and sex therapists that deal with people who
Can
have
also
these.
be very bad for people's psychological health when they become
What
sex
evidence do you
addicts, or
Show me-
well, here you can be my evidence.
Sure.
You're in school, and you're in 9th grade, and someone comes over and goes, "Bro, your dad is blowing a dude," and then right after your mom's blowing a dude, and they're all
You're
laughing at
missing-
you.
you've moved
Hang
on past the point.
Stop.
No,
I
you
want
stop.
you. I
You're
want
not
you to
giving
just
us
let me
serious hypothetical
finish. Let me
question.
finish.
Okay, you're just going to finish with something retarded.
So I just want you to say that that's okay with you. You think that
I
that's
don't think
fine?
it's okay that sometimes there are negative consequences to someone engaging in sex work. That does not mean sex work
you
in
would
itself
be
is bad.
So you're just okay, but you're
Why
okay
don't you
with it.
respond to what Stardust said? Are you against someone who
Mm-hmm.
has this severe physical disability who seeks out an intimacy coach, a sex psychologist, a sex therapist, and wants to
I'm
engage in
against
that?
all sex out of wedlock.
So you
Yeah, he is.
okay?
So what are you talking
Okay.
about? I don't
I'm
even know.
talking-
I don't even know
I'm
why.
talking to
I don't even know.
someone who can
Look,
engage,
you,
really.
you might think that's. Hang on. In my defense, you might think that's a little weird. This old-fashioned guy with his
No,
butt.
no.
Hang on.
You
Hang on. Let
didn't
me
have sex
finish.
out of
Let
wedlock?
me.
I
Bro,
don't
let me
think it's weird.
finish. Let me finish.
Don't
Might
think
think it's a little old-fashioned. You might think it's a little strange, but I think it's a lot more strange that you're like, hey, my dad can blow dudes and my mom can blow the same dude right after, and that's just fine. That seems way more fucking strange to me, man.
What's strange is you saying that you having your values, which is beautiful, that you think that two individuals should enter a partnership and be monogamous. That's cool. I think that that's actually really great for people that it works for. And then my values of, I think people should be able to engage in sex work and still be in a monogamous relationship. We have two values going on. The cringe part is you saying I shouldn't be allowed to value what I value.
Oh, really?
I'm saying we can
Well, let
both
me
have
ask
our
you.
values.
Well, let me ask you a question then. Is there any
Sure.
such thing as objective true, or anything that's objectively true? Anything?
This is a deeper conversation, but
I
I
was
do
about
think.
to say, I think this is what Chud was trying to avoid.
Yeah, we don't need to get into.
Look, at this point,
Well, then
I'm
the
sympathetic
thing is, like,
I am
don't,
not-
then
No,
don't get into
not,
it.
Not
then.
your like God objective truth. No, I'm sympathetic to pragmatist understandings of truth, and I think that's just not a conversation we can really have seriously.
So, is
In
there
your
objective
objective
truth or
objective-
not?
I think there is objective truth. It's intersubjective truth. So.
What does that mean? Intersubjective.
So this is why I don't want to get in the conversation. Intersubjective objectivity is going to be kind of like a species-wide understanding of there are truths that are true for all human mental states. So there's an objectivity there, but it's not an objective in some sort of like out in the world, there's absolute truth or some sort of transcendent certainty that we can come in touch with. That's your kind of
Okay.
God thing. So I'm not
Gotcha.
into that. But again, that conversation.
So there is
should
no
probably
objective
correct.
truth then.
I agree with
don't-
Chud. Vote
Not
to
in
skip.
your straw man of objective truth of like the God one. No, that's
Well,
just
not-
God.
Vote to
not
skip,
straw
guys.
man.
Come
I
on.
just,
Let's-
I just want to check something with Big Papa Fascist because I think this is an important point. Okay, so Big Papa Fascist, you got someone. Okay, you're pointing to the extremities that I'm kind of memeing about, right? But if someone's disabled and they can't piss for themselves, I'm sure you'd agree a nurse can come along, get their little fucking penis out, and help them piss, right?
Sex has intent behind it.
Just answer the question.
I
answer
said
the
yes.
fucking question.
I did.
Okay. But
3
then you went on to
times.
say something else, didn't you?
Yeah,
You're not really engaging
I can,
with what's
I
going
can
on.
qualify my yes and no's, even if you have rocks in your mouth. So
But the
yes,
thing
I
is-
can qualify it after I say yes. I can
But
give you a
what I'm saying
qualifier
to
for
you
why I
is
said
That was
that.
a
you would
great
accept that
impression.
because that's obviously a medicalization of something which would normally be a private act, right? Which is going for a piss. And all I'm saying is, if someone needs to get the rocks off and they can't because they're fucking disabled, is there not a medicalized version, much like
why-
helping them go for
It's
a
not
piss?
medical. It's not like necessary.
It is medical. Yeah.
No, what's medical about it?
Ejaculation
not
for a
think that
man
there are
is something
actual-
that
Is he going
is
to die if he doesn't
This is an
come?
actual
right?
Is
medical
he gonna
field.
die, guys? Is he gonna die if he doesn't come? What's
No
going on
shit.
here?
That's ridiculous. What
I
are you
feel like
talking
Die if
about?
I couldn't come anymore.
I mean, if you
Yeah,
if you
me
don't
too.
if you don't ejaculate, can that
Yeah,
not
you
cause
guys are
issues
dumb.
over time? Like,
So-
yeah, obviously you
Stardust
need to
and
clean the pipe, so
Andrew-
to speak.
I feel like that's a bad position because look, there's all kinds of things people with disabilities aren't going to die if they can't do, but we try to accommodate them because we feel like they should have a sort of typical human experience despite their disability.
It's about
Well,
contributing to their well-being and flourishing.
Hang on,
It's
is
not
one
about
of
making
those
sure you
things
don't
for the
die.
nurse to come in and jerk the guy off? I don't think it is, bro.
I would
They
say
jerk
that
off
part of the
animals, why
fundamental
not?
human experience.
I don't think that
is,
I don't
having
think
sex.
I don't think a nurse would be comfortable with the medical procedure of jerking you off if you were
Well,
disabled.
no,
Econo
human
boy.
You know they used to do
Well,
that.
if they
nurse-
are,
first
if they're
of all,
comfortable with
they
it,
actually
it's
did
part of
used
their-
to do that.
I'm sure they're then like cleaning up shit.
That's
that
where
they've got to do it,
vibrators
right?
came
There's lots of
from.
things they don't like to do.
They
It's
wipe
not
their
required
asses,
in
you
the
know.
process.
This is so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Okay.
So tell me this, Judd. If a nurse said to you, It's not my job description to jerk that patient off. Would you make her? Would you say, yeah, it is?
You,
Go do
Andrew,
it.
No,
are
because
so
no,
dumb.
it's cool. I
Of course
think
You're
not.
it's
jerking off
ridiculous.
gloves
Our
on,
actual
bitch. Get
sex
in there. Right
It's
now.
not that you can grab a fucking
One at a
random person off
time.
the street and
Let's
demand they
find
jerk
out.
off someone with a
Intimacy code.
disability. It's that there should be people who should be allowed to do that as their job if they want to do that as their job, Andrew. How do you not understand the difference? This is preposterous, Andrew. Come on.
I don't think
Claimed-
some disabled
you
fella getting
claimed that
jerked
this
off
was
in a bed
a-
is like
bro,
gonna have a
You
massive
can't
problem.
claim that this is a
Terrible.
medical procedure, but then say it's perfectly okay for medical professionals to deny the medical procedure. What are they denying it on the
You
grounds
say
of?
something is a medical procedure. It doesn't
Oh
mean
my God.
all medical personnel have to engage in it. That's not
Look,
what that
if
means.
you
Okay,
if you
well,
have a
what-
brain,
what
You
does
have,
it
like, so it's a
Yeah,
medical
they've got a
procedure to
right
have
to
brain
refuse.
surgery. That doesn't mean you can force a nurse to give you like what? What do you?
if
What the fuck? are you
if you
talking
have
about?
a brain tumor and you go to the hospital, we're not going to force just any random person working at the hospital to
Just
perform
because
the
they're
brain
medical.
surgery. We would get
Okay.
the person who's the brain surgeon
But
to do
if
the
a
brain
heart-
surgery,
but if a
and we
heart-
get the person who's the fucking jerking off people with
Get-
disabilities
get the
person
master-
to jerk
quick,
the people off with
quick,
disabilities.
intimacy
All right.
Quick, call the
these-
masturbation nurse. We need
I
the
was-
you guys
masturbation
are-
nurse.
that degree.
You guys
Okay,
are
hold on.
slugging so hard.
Hold
we
on.
can't
Paging
even get
fucking
anywhere with
nurse
this
who jerks
conversation.
people
Guys,
off with disabilities. Okay,
We
exactly.
need to make an important point, which I think Andrew is right. Hospital staff should be forced to jerk you off no matter their qualification. That way you can ask a cardiologist to beat you off if you
Based
want them to.
counterpoints.
So
True.
anyways, so I feel like we've gone far afield, but that's okay. Like we can go wherever y'all want to. We still got 45 minutes left. But I do feel like we've landed in territory where we're not like really addressing the Hunter and Carissa Avallone story anymore. We've talked about banging camels. We've talked about jerk off nurses. We've talked about disabled people. We've talked about all sorts of shit. What we're really asking is this what we want for society? And I've heard 2 or 3 people say this isn't what we want, but it should be legal because people should be able to make autonomous choices as they're adults. Well, HP, I've heard you say some pretty intense things tonight, and I'm excited to get back to them.
Good.
And then I've heard other people say, no, this is not what we want in society, and we should at minimum socially pressure people to not do these things. So
I think that
yeah.
the thing that we do right now is we kind of glorify it socially, especially OnlyFans, with all the girls that are walking around, getting onto the like fucking red pill podcasts, getting all this attention. The more famous ones getting 10,000 plus a month. People make it sound like it's super easy, and then girls will go on there. There's like 45% of the accounts don't even make $5 per month, and then they're still having their nudes on the fucking internet.
Carissa
and
Avallone's
then-
account.
And then someone, I don't remember who said it. I'm not even sure if it's true, but I'm just assuming this is true, that it is really easy to leak all of these OnlyFans content. The fact that all these girls are going on there expecting, either validation, a paycheck, both, I think that we need to be more honest with what the situation is rather than saying like, okay,
Yeah.
you've turned 18, go ahead, open up an OnlyFans. It's going to get you quick money, easy peasy.
The median income for an OnlyFans worker is like $170 or something like that per month.
Oh, yeah.
It's fucking.
But I don't
minimal.
know. I mean, I'm not sure if anybody on this panel would say that that's the type of work that should be encouraged for all the risks that you described. I mean, I don't think anybody would recommend to somebody, oh, you're struggling with money, like go start an OnlyFans, right? It's just a matter of like the.
And why do we
sort of-
want it around, dude?
It's
Why do we
okay,
want it around?
Andrew,
It's not even
Andrew, I feel like you're
Illegalize
positively
everything that you think is
incapable of understanding our point. Hold on, Sansel, okay? The point is not that sex work is good or bad. It's just that the enforcement of illegalizing it is not worth the cost, and it's probably not that bad to have it legal in the first place. Okay, there's not really a lot of harms associated with sort of sex work, societally. Why they
Then why
can't be
did you
regulated
disagree
properly?
with?
Isn't that
Then why
good
did
to
you just
legalize it?
agree?
Period.
Why did you just agree with Sanzel then?
No,
That-
Because
it
my
basically said
method-
my entire opinion right there. It's not that we should make it illegal. It's that right now we have a lot of people out there who are kind of glorifying this lifestyle, while people who are able to make a lot of money on there do get to live glamorous lifestyles. It doesn't mean that everyone is going to, and it doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that most people or even
So are
a
you saying we
fraction
should
of them are.
stigmatize it?
I'm saying that we should be more realistic. If that means stigmatizing it, if you want to, go for it. I don't really have that much of a vested interest in.
Well, I mean, that's what
OnlyFans,
you're
but
doing, right? You're like perpetuating a stigma against it, aren't you?
I think I'm being realistic. You can make money off of it. I mean, if the median income is $170 and that's like getting you, through some like electricity bills, then go for it. But you got to be like really, you got to be sure what you're doing instead of just like doing it because it's giving you $170.
Okay, can we just, sorry, I just want to get back a little bit to touch on the topic as well, right? Can we just say how ridiculous it is that Carissa is trying to claim that she wanted to do anonymous OnlyFans while showing her face in the OnlyFans?
Showing your face, having the
Look,
guy.
Chud, we can
Yeah,
all
I don't
agree that's pretty
understand that
stupid.
No, I really don't.
Retard.
I don't
It's
understand that
unwise.
either.
Where
It was
are my
unwise.
fuck
I mean, you know.
supporters? What the fuck happened? I was expecting the progressives to be like, no, it's based. Like, what the fuck is going on?
Well, I don't.
I'm
Nobody
not
with a brain in their
progressive.
head would say like, "Oh, base, like everyone should go do sex work." Of course, that's a completely idiotic position. It's just equally
Yeah,
idiotic to say
not
that
about-
nobody should be allowed to do it. Like, it's it doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
No, I
there are
think
some other
she
things-
was. That's
Go
why
ahead.
this whole thing was hard for me because I just think she's a fucking retard. Like the whole situation, he's an idiot, she's an idiot. They both handled it wrong, and I think everybody in this is, all three of them are stupid.
Yeah, I don't think anyone in this panel disagrees that, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but that the way that their relationship was navigated by both of them is retarded. Yeah, like I don't think anyone here disagrees. I'm sorry that, Connor, you thought I was going to be a
No,
defender. I'm not.
It's fine. But I do have a question that.
Wait, did you think HP was going to defend cucks? Are you serious? That's a
Well,
bit
he
out of
was
order.
defending his mom jerking off disabled people 5
I
minutes
will
ago.
defend.
So, like,
Yeah, absolutely. I will defend criminalization of sex work all day. Absolutely.
so Chud, yes. The answer is yes. But
I don't think that
hold
she's
on.
wrong for engaging in sex work, Connor. I think that she's wrong for cheating on her husband. That's not the same thing.
Which actually kind of gets me to the question that I wanted to ask, because one of the things that I think Chud was kind of being aggressive with Stardust about, but I think is worth pointing out, is that it seemed like to me, based off of the available messages, that Kingston was trying to get her as a girl in his stable. And for me, if someone was trying to do that to somebody in my life, where they were trying to use emotional manipulation in order to get sexual favors, and then also trying to build that kind of relationship, I don't think I have like a TOS friendly thing to say about what I would do to that person.
Yeah, it's
So
shitty
what do
behavior.
we? So what do we? How do we feel about like a man trying to recruit a woman for sex work and then also leveraging emotional bullshit in order to get favors?
Yeah,
I mean,
coercing
it just
someone.
sounds
I
like
think it's
pimpery,
okay.
doesn't it?
Tango, no? Like, I'd agree with you if
Sure.
she was like desperately trying to push him back and he was going,
Yeah.
no, you're going to do what I want. But she was willingly engaging in it. So
Yeah, she was
criticize him for
willing.
being a sleazebag, sure, but it takes two to tango. And she
One
was
thing
fucking
to be
very
Am
going on,
I
though, like,
am I the only one
Chud.
on the panel that sees a very like a slight distinction between the way that they were discussing, like talking to each other versus like a dom sub relationship? Like this didn't sound like he was manipulating her. It sounded like they had an
Yeah.
idea of how the relationship was supposed to play out, and that's exactly how they were doing it.
I think in some
Like-
instances, didn't she take advantage? Wasn't he taking advantage of some of her naivete, not being experienced in this
Yeah,
kind of
so-
like? But I don't think that. I think
Oh,
both. things
God.
go hand.
Naivety?
So-
She
so
has
if I
no
can-
naivety in this.
I don't know
case.
enough. Sure,
So-
maybe
so
I'm
if I
incorrect.
can,
Star
I-
wants to
I
add
do
context,
think-
and I want to hear it.
I do think that Carissa, obviously started engaging this in this willingly, right? But I do think that there is like a little bit of naiveness, I guess, that she had while engaging with this. That doesn't make her completely, blameless in this. Obviously, she
complicit,
engaged
yeah,
in it, but
completely.
yeah, but I do think that there are things that indicate that he kind of knew more what he was doing. He knew that she was naive about this, and was kind of manipulative, right?
I mean, she's
Like,
a
for
24-year-old woman.
example-
You really think that like a
for
black pimp dealing with a black
for
pimp, she's like,
example-
oh, I don't have any clue what's going on here. What could
No,
what
it's
could
not
possibly
that
happen?
extreme.
Wait,
It's
wait,
both,
wait, wait,
right?
wait, wait. For example,
No, it was that
right?
extreme. Come on, he's a black pimp. Let's face it. That's what the
Yeah,
guy
no,
is.
that's
He's a
obviously
pimp.
ridiculous.
For-
Equating him to a
for
Star
pimp.
example-
wants to finish, and I want her to
Okay.
finish.
He's a little bit of a pimp.
No.
He's a
I
fucking
want.
pimp.
Hey,
Sorry.
everybody, shut up. Let the brown woman talk. Star, I wanted to hear your thought completed.
Yeah, no. I do think that there was some naiveness from Carissa, even though she did engage in it like willingly. But like there were times where it seemed like he was being manipulative, right? Like where he was like, "You're not sending me pictures, or you're not doing what I want you to," and she's like, "I'm sorry, I had a UTI, and then I got strep, and all of that."
Then she should have just
and he
stopped
was like,
engaging, and when he was being
and
unreasonable, it seems pretty simple to me.
excuse
It's
me,
on Discord.
can I finish? Can I finish
Yeah,
what I'm
yeah,
saying?
but if you keep making stupid
Can
points,
I
I'm going to
finish?
interrupt.
I'm trying to finish what I'm saying. You do not have the jurisdiction to tell me it's stupid when I haven't finished it yet.
Yes,
I can tell
please
already.
Okay,
please
knock
let Star
off
finish.
fucking real life Dilbert. Okay, whatever the fuck you are. What I was saying is basically she there you can even see exchange where she's talking about like, oh, I'm sorry, I have a UTI, then I had strep, and he's saying, oh, you're not being submissive enough. You're not, you need to start listening to me and all that. I'm sorry, she was sick. Like, like I'm not saying that she's completely blameless once again. She very much willingly engaged with this. She was clearly interested in engaging in this type of work, but I do think that he was manipulative, and I do think that his reaction to her and releasing all of her photos was like just completely overblown. He should not have done that. So,
Your feelings?
So, yeah, I mean, I don't
just have a
disagree.
real quick question. I want to interject, if you don't mind. Guy
I'll
with the
I'll go after him.
guy with the gray shirt that I was talking to. Who
Speak.
will? Yeah,
Okay,
I don't
go.
know. I don't know. I can't see your names on the.
I'm writing people's names down.
It's all
Yeah, I
good.
can't see your name on the Discord.
I'm a Kano
do
boy.
you have a single mom?
Do I have a single mom?
Yeah,
Like,
was
is my
your
mother
were you
not-
raised by a single mother? Yeah.
Yes, true.
I just had a feeling. That's all.
Okay.
That's all I wanted to ask.
All right.
Anyway,
we're gonna pause. Ginger wanted to go, but I wanted to hear Chud's response. It seemed like he had a specific response.
Yeah, I want Chud to go, and then I'll.
Okay.
Yeah, Chud and then Ginger.
What I was going to say is like, this was over at a Discord. This is something she could have cut off if she was just a bit more open and honest to say, you're making me feel a bit uncomfortable and I don't want to continue this anymore. Okay. But she played in at every turn to all of this manipulation. Okay. It was like, she was clearly sexually into the relationship of the sub-dom dynamic, as Ginger pointed out. I think that was very prominent for the conversation. I think what's more realistic is that she was into it and had like a lot of sexual fantasies about it, and then at some point freaked out and thought, it's too much, I can't do this. Okay, which by the way is fine. I get it. Going to fucking fuck a bunch of dudes and get fucked by Big Black Kingston is scary. I totally get that. But she wasn't open in her communication. I agree that Kingston was excessive to release the video, but she made her own bed by engaging in it very fucking full-throatedly and then cutting off contact with no communication, which led Kingston to freak out, which then led to him releasing the video.
Okay, I want to hear Ginger's response real quick. We did get $60 on PayPal, so we got roughly $100 for Cody Lee. Cody is a community member. He's taking care of 2 disabled adults, neither of whom anybody on the panel should try to jerk off. And basically, he needs our help right now in order to help pay his bills. So if you do have some money, feel free to do it via Super Chat, Twitch Dono, subs, whatever. 100% of what we make tonight will go to Cody Lee. Ginger, take it away.
Chud actually touched exactly on what I was going to say. Is it like continuing on what I was saying earlier? It did feel like a sub dom relationship that got out of hand for her. It sounded like it was something that they initially had started on, maybe not necessarily like word for keyword, but it was something that they started out on, and it was something that she inevitably decided that she couldn't keep up with. But instead of telling him that, she kind of like dissipated from it and decided like, well, maybe I'm not going to go along with it as much, but when I can, I'll just send the picture.
Why is everything
that is not good on her part?
Yeah, but why is everything a fucking psychoanalysis? Can't you just say the Reader's Digest version of this, which is he's a pimp and she's a fucking whore? This is agreed to. It's simple. He's a pimp, she's a whore.
Okay, you do realize though that I'm getting that's pretty much the same thing that I'm getting at.
Right,
Like,
that's why I'm saying you don't need the big psychobabble and psychoanalysis. Just say, hey, he's a pimp, she's a whore. We all know what that means.
okay.
I have a question. So, Chud, sometimes you're laughing and you're moving your head out of the screen. Are you laughing so hard that you're moving your head out of the screen, or are you trying to avoid being clipped as a part of whatever Andrew is saying?
Listen, all I'm going to say is I disavow everything Andrew says, okay? Full disavowal from me, okay? I think he's a terrible misogynist, terrible person.
No, let me finish real quick. Okay, so I feel like she got she.
I just
she
about
felt like
myself.
I feel like
myself.
Ginger, please go ahead.
I feel like she felt like it was getting out of hand, and instead of saying something like, like an actual adult and being like, hey, this is too much, too much that I didn't bargain for this. She continued on with it and then decided to like do like a whole, oh well, he manipulated me into the situation. No, I feel like you just couldn't handle what you signed up for, and that's on her, not on anybody else. And I don't think it's on Kingston either. How he reacted is on him, but the rest of it is not.
Okay, and we've heard from other people all night, so I wanna hear from Star as well.
Yeah, so I'm not going to disagree. Like, she very clearly could have communicated with him in a much better way, and this is a fault that I see in a lot of women. This is why I always advocate for women to be very upfront about how they're feeling with men. But what I would say is I still cannot find any justification for the way that Kingston has acted, and that initial video being released, even if her way of communication was just so terrible. Releasing those photos in that video just is completely.
How many times you said that now? I think we get the point. It was bad to do that. I've said that. I think most people would agree. Maybe not
I
BPF,
think we all
but
agree.
you know,
Well, no, I don't think
everyone
that
else
was
would
clear.
agree.
I don't think that was clear, so I wanted to make it clear.
Okay, so it being said multiple times is not clear enough. No,
It was not clear in what you guys were saying, so I wanted to
okay,
make that clear.
got it.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
I feel the momentum slowing a little
but
bit.
no, it's not, because I kind of actually
Okay.
need this clarified to
We're at full
kinda,
speed now.
like,
Okay.
by your own standard, then Stardust, you released revenge porn.
I don't think so. No.
How did you not?
Because I have continued to say the first version of Kingston's video I do think is revenge porn. The second version I don't think so.
Yeah, but Chud already kind of put you to the question on this and said, isn't that convenient that even though the same type of imagery is in the second video, it just so happens that
It's
you
completely
consider
blurred.
you
It's
just
completely
consider it
blurred.
not
You
to be
can't-
revenge porn simply because
Yeah,
that
you
was
can't-
the version you went with.
You can't see anything in it, really. So yeah, I don't think so. But with the first version of the video, yes, I do think it's revenge porn.
Yeah, so
What
what
about
would
the fact that
constitute...
Carissa said it's revenge porn if it's blurred sexual images.
I mean,
So
I disagree
Carissa
with
thinks it's
her.
revenge porn.
I disagree with her. I think the first version 100% is revenge porn. I don't think the second version is.
So
Why not?
by
What's the
Carissa's
difference?
standard, at least, you released revenge porn?
If that's her standard, then yeah, sure.
Okay. But it's not your standard.
It's not my standard now.
So would you, if you could go back, would you still release the same exact video?
Would I still cover it on stream?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Because, and so is your standard just if it's blurred, it's not revenge porn?
If you can't tell what's behind that blur, I don't think so.
So if I had like a
the
woman that
blur-
I hated and I released nudes of her, but I like just blurred out the naughty bits and just
Not
left the
just
rest of the
naughty bit,
imagination,
entire
you
thing.
wouldn't...
The entire thing is blurred.
I actually have
in
a
the
question
second
for you,
version.
Stardust.
Yeah.
Did you end up going back and like re-blurring it out on your upload?
No. It was all. I always watched the second version. I never watched the first version.
Okay, but after finding out that Carissa feels like it's a little bit of, a leak, do you feel like...
By the way, the original video was blurred, just so you know.
No, it wasn't. Not in
It
the
was.
same way. Not in
Yeah,
the same
but
way.
what does
The
that
first
mean, though?
version-
Not in the same way.
the
How much
first
blurrage
24
do we need?
Yes. The video that was up for the first 24 hours had pretty much everything visible except for naughty bits, which had the tiniest blur on them, and you could still see through it.
Yeah, but you could still, even on the second video with the
No,
blur,
the
you kind of
second-
could see what was going
No.
on.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I
don't
think
think
so. And especially then you are also signaling to other people, hey, this is out there, go hunt it down, right?
I don't think so.
Well, how's that not the case? I mean, of course people are going to do that, right?
I mean, they're going to, but we all cover this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, I
Like,
know,
it
but that doesn't mean
that
it's not
we're
revenge
implicitly-
porn.
It doesn't mean that we're implicitly encouraging people to go out and find more stuff, right?
I mean, the thing is, Hypocrite, who I think is, a right-wing dude and hates Hunter, even he said, this is too revenge porny for me, and he put big black boxes over the images.
Yeah, and I privated my
And I
video,
never even
so-
covered it. I never covered
Yeah.
it.
So
So
yeah,
that's so
actually,
honourable, honestly,
Virtue.
Andrew. I think that is very respectable.
yeah, very virtuous.
Virtuous.
So
Very virtuous.
yes, Virtuous. Okay, so I want to read out the super chats. That
I
we
just
have
broke
gotten,
the whole
'cause
story, but other than that, I didn't cover it.
We-
That's all.
We
That
got
is true. He is the center point for all this.
we did get an additional $80, so we're up to 180 for helping
go.
out a community member. So that's very based. But I am going to read the chats even if they're distasteful because I figure that's what people are paying money for. Pretending Carissa was being manipulated when it was
For
clear as
charity.
day she was enjoying it, being dominated by an alpha, saying yes sir is cope. All right, thank you for the dono. Oh my God, how dare you, Dilbert? I think that is directed at Chud. Olaf was here. That comes from Olaf Tredevek. Thank you kindly, Olaf. Kelther says, I was going to donate to Chud, but he won't mention the word bull. So here you go to Cody. I think I've heard Chud say bull several times. I'm not sure if that's accurate, but we've said it twice now, so I hope you appreciate that. Lord Corporal says, for the bros, as long as you're a brodette, I don't give a fuck how abled you are. So if you need a hand job, I think Lord Corporal has you covered. But appreciate all the donos. Thank you for helping a community member out. And then we probably got, I would say, I feel it dying down. If you guys still have things that you want to talk about, let's talk about it. But I'm going to end it around 10:50 in about 15 minutes so we can do outros and kind of call it. So who has last shots? Is it against somebody on the panel, a position that you feel like we haven't covered, a drama thing that you're concerned about? HP, I think I saw your hand.
Oh, sure. I was shrugging, but yeah, I can go. I have things I could contribute, I think.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Again, I'm not as up to date on the Hunter Avallone stuff, so I can't contribute as much. I think my little research into it, I don't feel comfortable saying whether or not she was manipulated, but it sounds like she was in a relationship, dom something. So maybe she was. It sounds to me like she's at fault, and it sounds to me like she cheated. That's what it sounds like. Even if he was using some tactics that some people might point to as emotionally manipulative, it's not enough to attribute fault to him, I don't think. In terms of sex work, I was kind of sad. I know Chud was frustrated with my getting into a conversation with Andrew about metaethics, but I did kind of want to talk a little bit about the fact that sex work is something that has existed since the beginning of human history, and no matter the legalization, when it's criminalized, as it is in a lot of countries, it does not go away. And so it's interesting to me to talk about whether or not it makes sense to decriminalize sex work for the sex workers involved, because we know that it's necessarily going to be the case that there will be sex workers, and we know also that they are disproportionately affected by violence. And of course, because they're criminals, they can't go to the police, or at least they're much less likely to. And so you have this perpetuation of violence towards people who are probably in a position that they got to because of unforeseen circumstances. And, a lot of streetwalkers are not prostitutes because that was their choice. So, do you think, Andrew or Chud or anyone else, that it makes sense to talk about protecting sex workers because they are necessarily
that's every single crime. That's every single thing on planet Earth. In fact, if you make it legal, and then suddenly there's going to be less ramifications to the people who are engaging in it.
But not like people who steal aren't disproportionately affected by violence, like the way that.
Well, they would be if you made theft legal, right? They would probably be disproportionately affected by violence.
Wait, are you saying that?
But hang on, back up.
You just said something.
And by the way, people
retarded,
who are stealing, hang on. Let me finish, man. Don't ask me a question and then not let me finish the answer. No, I'm literally expanding on it.
Please.
Also, people who steal right now, I'm sure, are disproportionately affected by violence. I'm positive of it.
I don't think so.
Because if they're breaking into house, so do you think a person who doesn't break into a house versus people who professionally do are more at risk for getting shot or less at risk for getting shot?
Sure, there might be a small 1 to 2%, but you're not talking about the increased percentage that you would see for prostitutes facing violence.
Demonstrate that. Show me.
Well, there are empirical studies that I could send you.
Then show them.
Okay, I'll post them in the chat if you'd prefer.
Yeah, show me that people who are thieves experience less violence than sex workers. I don't think you can do that. Show it to me.
Are you okay? I'll show you the papers. It's weird to me that you would find that.
It's not weird to me. Nothing. I'm asking you to show it. Don't talk. Just show it.
Okay, I'll post it in the chat. I don't know to what extent that will enhance the conversation because you'll have to read it. But okay.
Right.
What do you mean, right?
Well, I mean, that's why this is not even the venue to go after this, because you would have to do a study exchange and then we would organize a debate.
Well,
let's do that
for the study.
Yeah, well, there's no other answer to it
Sure.
other than
Okay,
to
so
ask for that.
we can't really engage in any sort of subsequent discussion because you're saying we can't bring to bear certain evidence that would be
Yeah,
acceptable.
well, if you're gonna if you schedule a debate, you send over
It's
studies.
weird.
I would
It
send over
seems
studies.
intuitive to me that people who engage in sex work are obviously going to be more prone to violent acts than people who engage in theft. I understand
Why?
that
Why is that
necessarily
intuitive?
because people who engage in sex work are going to be with another person.
Well,
and
they're at higher risk due to the behavior, and I contend that people who are thieves are also at higher risk for
the
certain
risk is
behavior.
not going to be comparable. Pretty
How do
obvious.
you don't know that?
I
And
do know that. You
can't
just
demonstrate that.
No, I have because I spent the day researching papers on this exact thing. But you
You
won't
didn't research whether or not thieves are at the same risk for being
So one of the
subjected
studies,
to violence than
false.
sex workers.
That's false. One of the
Okay,
studies
prove it.
talks about how they are disproportionately affected given criminal behavior. So we can, again, these are studies that we'd have to share, but let's set up a debate, Andrew. That sounds great to me.
That's fine.
Then we can have a
If you want to lose a
That sounds
debate, you
wonderful.
send over 2 studies. I'll send over 2, and you can
Let's
lose.
do
It's
it.
fine with
Let's
me.
do that. That sounds great. So we can put this on hold and have a real discussion about it.
I agree.
That sounds
All right.
wonderful.
Anything relevant to tonight then, besides the plans for future debates?
I just,
It sounds like
I'm
everyone's, like,
really,
mostly
I'm
in
honestly
agreement.
really fucking. I think Stardust is getting away with murder. She's put out this video, just fucking totally defending
Murder?
Hunter, brings him on and lets him say whatever the fuck he wants without any pushback whatsoever, and now sits her in this panel and acts like she wasn't trying to make the points she was actually making. It's total fucking bullshit.
I think that this is like again incredibly uncharitable, right? Like I made.
Oh, it's uncharitable. It's uncharitable.
Well,
It's not
no,
uncharitable.
I
It's what
do-
fucking
I do think-
happened.
I do think so. I do think so because no other person who covers drama is held to the standard. People make statements all the time about what they think is
I am
happening,
held to this
and they-
standard. I'm criticized for
don't
things
think
I
so.
said, and I say
I
I take
don't
the L.
think so. Not
I'm
in the
held to
same
this
way.
fucking
No, I
standard.
don't think so.
I have a
don't
Oh,
think
it's because
question.
so.
you're
I
a
think
woman. It's because you're a brown
allowed-
woman. You're going to pull the
No, no,
fucking
it's
race
not.
card
I
as well, you
never
stupid
said
fucking
that.
bitch.
I never-
It's such
I never said
bullshit.
that. I
You're
never
shit
said
at
that.
this.
I
You're
never
fucking
said
shit
that.
at this. You're no good at it. You get called out for it,
The
and then you act
only
like it's because
one-
you're a fucking woman.
I never said that. When did I say that? Give me one
Okay,
example
so
where I
why
said
is it
that.
you're held
Give
to
me
the
one
standard
example where I
then?
said that.
Okay, explain to me why you held to the standard. What is it then? If it's not because you're a woman or because you're brown?
I think that people, it's like cool to shit on Stardust right now, and people are looking to shit on Stardust.
And
I
there's a
think that's what
reason
it
for
is.
that. And
Yeah,
there's a
because you're
reason for
wrong.
that.
Well, it's just because you're wrong.
Hold on,
It's like,
I want
that's
to
why.
I want to ask a question, and I also
What
want
is
to say
the specific
personally.
critique here?
I-
Sorry.
Hold on, yeah, I want
The
to say I
specific
find,
critique is Stardust put out a tweet acting like she was going to do this unbiased coverage, but just did a fucking hatchet job on Kingston.
I never
Oh,
said
I've got it from
unbiased.
both sides, guys. I've got information from both
Hold on.
sides.
Yeah, I did, but
When
I
you-
never said
Stardust,
There
when
unbiased.
you asked-
information from both sides. It
Okay.
was Carissa's
Okay.
narrative.
People when they cover drama all the time, they are allowed to take sides and they're allowed to be wrong about things. And I'm willing to admit where I was wrong.
so I'm gonna
Stardust,
ask
when
a
you
question.
approach-
Hold on,
oh,
Sansol. You
I'll
haven't
write
talked a
down.
lot, so I will absolutely allow you to talk. I just want to ask Stardust a question, and I also want to say here,
Yeah.
I've been a Stargazer and Chud Nation for a while. So the fact that Chud Nation and Stargazers are at war right now actually makes me really sad, and I hope that this conflict can be resolved. But Star, I think I heard you kind of allude to this in your coverage. You felt that Kingston was presenting things in a certain way. Do you feel like in your coverage you ultimately ended being sympathetic with the Avallones over
Oh,
Kingston?
absolutely. Yeah. I would never disagree with that. I was more sympathetic towards the Avallones than I was to Kingston because when I was talking with Kingston, I didn't feel like he was being forthcoming with me. I didn't feel like he was being honest with me. And you know, I came to the conclusions that I did, right? But to call it like a hit
You were
piece
influenced
or
by
to
Carissa's
call it-
narrative.
Before
It's
you-
very
before you
Wait
obvious.
pop
a minute.
off-
Wait.
All right, so Star, I want you to finish, and then Sansol has not
Yeah.
talked a lot tonight, so I want to give him an opportunity to speak, and then Chud, if you want to pop off for the last couple of minutes, you can.
To call it a hit piece is just inaccurate. I made I put a presentation together of everything that made
You worked
sense
really
to
hard,
me.
didn't you?
My point was my point of that presentation was to go through all the claims made in Kingston's video and to explain why I don't agree with those claims. It was not about anything else other than that.
It was a hit
Okay,
piece.
so Sansol
think
first,
it was a
and
hit
then
piece, no.
Sansol,
It was a hit piece.
It was more than
Sansol,
that.
and
It was
then
a,
we
it was
will
a lynch
open it
piece.
back up.
It was a digital
It was a
lynching
lynch
attempt.
piece. Okay.
Yes,
Lynch-
just like
okay.
Emmett
But
Till,
then
just like
pornographer
Mahatma
Stardust
Gandhi.
and
We get
lynching
it.
Stardust. Okay.
Yes.
we got it.
Okay. Sansol,
Star.
please.
Now.
Hold on. Sansol, please share your thoughts, and then we'll open it back up.
Yeah. Okay. So my question to Star is, when you ask for info from like the Hawk guy or like any of his friends that you said that you messaged, did you present yourself as just trying to find the truth? Did you present yourself as an unbiased person, like a third party, just trying to get down to the facts of things?
So when I initially did reach out, I didn't really yes, I was pretty much like just trying to find any information, right? But as I got more information, I did become more biased. Yes.
Okay, did you inform the non-Avallone side of this that were you like arguing with them in the DMs, or did you just like keep on getting information saying, "Oh wow, very interesting," and then like put out a hit
I
piece
just
like
kept
3 days later?
asking.
Or
Yeah, I
I'm
just kept
presupposing
asking.
it there, but
Yeah. So I just kept asking for where is this that where where is this evidence that somebody said something about you? You keep saying that somebody said something about you. Can you tell me where exactly that was or what exactly happened? And I would never get a straight answer for it.
okay, I guess
Yeah.
like the meat of the question I'm trying to ask is, did you present yourself as unbiased? They gave you more information because they didn't think that you were gonna like write or like produce some content that was going to be like highly antagonistic towards them, and then produce that content.
I don't know that he even gave me that much information, to be honest with you. But I did, yeah. Of course, I approached him as a
You messed
neutral
with the bull
person.
and you got the horns. That's what happened. He was unhappy
Chud,
with the
you are
coverage.
Chud,
He was unhappy with the coverage and
you
kicked off afterwards. You kicked off and spun up more drama
Chud,
because your coverage was so one-sided.
Chud, you are more obsessed with black dick than Carissa is. Okay.
Oh yeah,
It's
good
just
one.
a
You're
red
just
herring.
obsessed.
Way
Just
more.
that's just a
obsessed.
red
Way
herring.
more obsessed with the bull than
Answer
like
to
a
the
red- more like
allegation.
a-
Answer to the allegation. Don't give the red herring bullshit, Stardust. Actually answer to it. It was a hit
Answer
piece.
to
You had a
what allegation? I
PowerPoint.
don't
You
think
had the whole 9
no.
yards.
I
Were
don't
you,
think
so let
so.
me ask you directly. Did you
It's
work
just
with
because I
Carissa
voiced my
Avallone?
opinion on something. Just
Did
because I
you
voiced my
work?
opinion.
Did you work with Carissa Avallone on that? Did you or didn't you?
She provided me information, but she did not work with it on me. No, I made that on my own by myself.
So she didn't have any input into it.
No, she did not.
So you would be comfortable like releasing the DMs back and forth with her about it.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
I think
Well,
so. Yeah.
well, I mean, if that's true, then I think that she has a leg to stand on, Chud. But I'm not
If she,
I'm
if
not
she's saying
sure.
you do, is make sure that you blur them out extra hard. Okay, it's a black box
Just
over
put a
it.
black box over
Yeah.
it.
I think it needs to be pointed out that Chud mentioned that he had a DM series with Carissa Avallone, and we haven't seen those either.
No, but
Yeah.
I've not used any of the
My
information from
God.
those DMs in my coverage. Nor have I with Kingston utilized private DMs that I've received to paint a certain narrative. I've given my own take. And if I think I've got something wrong, I've gone, okay, I'm going to walk that back or
Yeah,
amend
no,
that
and I
position
do.
slightly.
I was trying to
I have
insinuate that you were
acknowledged that
sexting
I
her,
don't
but-
think that I don't.
Okay.
I no longer think that Kingston had feelings for her like that. After
Because he's a
covering that,
pimp, Stardust, right?
Yeah,
But
no,
He's a
what
some
pimp.
process
people.
did you go through that was in your coverage in the first place? You said you worked
Well,
hard on
because-
it and it was supposed to be the
because
ultimate coverage of it. And it was a fundamental detail you got wrong.
It wasn't the
Hard
ultimate
out there for a
coverage. No,
pimp.
it wasn't. It wasn't the ultimate coverage. No, I volunteered my opinion based on the information that I was given, and I was wrong about him having feelings for her. Right. People made some pretty good arguments for why that's not the case. But as far as like whether I'm like, I don't know, like making a hit piece based off of me just forming my opinion on things and presenting why I have my opinion, I don't think that's correct, you know. So
Sure. I mean, I guess the issue that I've got and the reason I focus on things like you saying that he had feelings is the idea that he had feelings for Carissa is fundamental to pushing the narrative that because he was sidelined through his feelings, he then decided to release the video.
no, I know.
What got
I've
you
said
to
this
the
on my
position?
own
Did
stream.
Carissa get
I
you
said
to the
this on my
position,
own
or did
stream
you?
plenty that I no longer think that, right? I no longer think that he had feelings for her, but I still don't see the justification that he had.
Where did
for
you get the
releasing her
idea that he
images.
had feelings for her?
Just based on like the tweets that he had, certain exchanges between the two of them that seemed like, seemed like maybe he was having feelings, but like it to me, after somebody explained to me like, oh, this could be him just kind of like a manipulation tactic or something like that, I was like, okay, yeah, I could see that. Maybe he doesn't have feelings for her, so yeah.
Okay. Well, we are about to hit 10:50. We are going to for people can hang out with us after the show if they want to. Typically, we kind of have like a cool down session where we can talk about whatever for about 30 minutes to an hour after the show. If you want to do that, we can continue on after that. I did DM Lycan because he was like, "Oh, let me get on the panel. Let me get on the panel." I wanted to see Lycan and Chud hash their differences out as well.
Oh
so
yeah,
if he
Lycan doesn't know anything about it. Wants to fucking weigh in, and it's so pathetic. I hate it.
So if he DMs me back, then we'll do that. But we're gonna give our fine folks some outros. Thank you to the people who have donated. Thank you to the roughly 100 people cross-platform who have hung out with us tonight. We raised roughly $180 for Cody Lee. If you do have some extra dollars hanging out in your pockets, go ahead and donate it. He is a gentleman, a part of the Twitch and YouTube political community. He is on some tough times right now. He's working full time, taking care of 2 disabled adults who had some medical issues. So any dollars that you give me, I will give him, and we will make sure that we're taking care of our own. So, Andrew Wilson, would you mind sharing final thoughts with us on the topic, and also telling us where people can find you?
Yeah, my name is Andrew Wilson, host of the one and only Crucible. Kind of my final thoughts on this was that I felt like I got everything out of the panel that I wanted, which is that we all vastly agree that this dude's a pimp. We agree that Hunter Avallone's a cuck, and we agree that Carissa Avallone is a whore. Very simple, very easy. There's no psychoanalysis which was necessary. We all just kind of know that this is true, right? So we all had kind of broad agreement on it. After that, kind of had a feeling that gray shirt over there had a single mom, happy to engage with him on a debate in the future about sex work. I think that would be highly productive for both of us when it's not in a panel setting and we can actually cross-examine each other, this type of thing. Other than that, it was nice to see Sonzel. He contributed nothing as usual. Chud Logic, I felt like, shut up, it's my closing, fucker. Chud Logic, it was enjoyable to say the least. Even though you're a fucking dork. And then Stardust, yeah, it was a total fucking hit piece. I don't know what to tell you. It was a total hit piece. With that, I'm getting the fuck out of here. Have a good night, guys.
No, but then Chud, share any final thoughts and where people can find you.
I mean, I think people know where to find me already, so I don't want to suck my own dick too much on that one. I don't know. Listen, it's been fun. I think I made my points. I don't really have anything more to say. And if people are interested in hearing me and Stardust argue more, we're having a conversation moderated by Prime Kai next week, so look out for that.
All right, sweet. Thank you kindly. Econo Boy?
Yep, Econo Boy on pretty much everything. Again, mostly talk about economics and more like policy issues. So don't really talk about sort of, say pop culture in the Twitch politics space, let's say, for Hunter Avallone's drama and shit like that. But I thought we would talk more policy on this panel, but I had fun nonetheless. Everyone on this panel has redeeming qualities, and it was a great conversation. Yeah, I'll probably stick around for a little while afterwards as well.
Thank you. Ginger?
Really no closing statements. I feel like I got everything I needed to get out. This was fun to watch mostly. You can find me at Ginger Ramath on Twitch TV and YouTube and Twitter.
All right, thank you kindly. HP?
Yeah, like I said, I'm HPCR. One day I'll get a Twitch and do that whole thing, probably. This was my first sort of foray into this kind of stuff, so I appreciate everyone being patient and being cool. I did feel like sort of to echo his sentiments, I thought maybe we'd get more into some of the policies or merits of decriminalization or legalization, but either way, it was fun. Thanks.
All right, thank you kindly. Sonzel?
This was a fun panel. I thought that we would talk about the topics more instead of fucking meta ethics, which is the only thing Big Papa Fascist seems to be able, or Andrew is able to talk about, literally fucking ever. But other than that, it was a really fun panel. I'm gonna stick around because I just want to see what happens actually. So.
All right, fair. I'll be sure to check my DMs in a second and see if Lycan is cutting the content. Then Star, please share your final thoughts and where people can find you.
Yeah, I'm Stardust. A notorious revenge pornographer and digital lyncher. If you want to see me lynch Chud Logic next week, come check me out. Twitch.tv/Stardust or YouTube.com/Stardust streams.
Wow.
And if you cross me, I'm going to lynch you as well. I will commit a hate crime. I will do everything under the sun to you, and you will not like it. So
All right,
Yeah.
very based. Thank you kindly. And then everybody is free to hang out. I'll check my DMs. This is open, so whatever the fuck you want to talk about, we can talk about. So if Chud, you want to go after Star, you want to go after Chud, HP wants to talk about how we should be jerking off disabled people, Sansol wants to talk
True.
about legalizing heroin,
True.
we can do whatever.
Why do you think I would want to legalize heroin now?
I
What are
don't
you trying to
know,
imply,
fucking-
motherfucker?
You know what? The progressives were horrifically disappointing tonight. And it's not, by the way, it's not for lack of debate skill, okay? It has nothing to do with debate skill. I was
I
just
supposed to
used
be one of the progressives on this?
No. So
No,
Connor,
hold on.
defend
I
sex
don't want to insult you and then not finish the thought. My total thought is I'm used to the Reverie Roundtable and hippy dippies of like a year or two ago, where we were going to decriminalize everything. We were going to decriminalize prostitution. We were going to decriminalize drugs. We were going to institute socialism. We were going to kill all the capitalists. We were going to guillotine them. And tonight was way too fucking
Well,
rational.
but we would have gotten there. But the
Producer
problem is
knows
every
what my
time we brought it
position
up,
is nowadays,
Andrew
okay?
wanted to
She
talk about
knows
the
I'm
Bible.
not a fucking soy
Yeah, I
socialist
mean, like,
anymore.
yeah, that's a little. Some of those policies sounded retarded, so I'm not. I didn't mean to give you the impression I was retarded.
Yeah.
It's
But
all
I've
right. I'll
got
look for
some
more
more
retarded
retarded
participants.
In fairness, you had Andrew trying to talk about the Bible. I just wanted to
Yes.
talk about the drama. So obviously, it doesn't get to the meat and potatoes, does it? So,
It's okay. I try to and anybody can talk at any point, so you can interrupt me if you feel like it. But
God,
I try
Connor,
I
just
try
shut the
to
fuck up.
thanks.
Jesus.
I try to direct the show to like the more like serious stuff
didn't
because
listen.
I do feel like there is a lot of drama in this space, and that's primarily what we focus on. But then also, I was okay with the drama because, frankly, I think I've listened to Stardust coverage and I think I've listened to Chud's coverage like 6 times in the past
Wow.
like 72 hours
Wow.
because I've just been running it on a loop in the background because it is interesting. You have a conservative commentator who made a hard shift left. Relationship didn't shake out the way that anybody expected it to, and then some of those details were very lurid.
Look,
Yeah,
that's what
I mean,
happens when you become a progressive.
Yeah, I didn't
You
mean
want your
to-
wife to fuck other men. All right.
That's
yeah,
what I
I
saw.
definitely
Natural
think it's so
progression.
interesting. I
That's
didn't
why I
mean
became
to-
a centrist,
no,
not a
no,
progressive.
Base Sonsel. True.
One thing that I mean, I don't think you were really doing this yourself. You just wanted to talk about other topics on it. But there's definitely a group of people who are like acting like the details of what happened aren't insane and going to be interesting for people to talk about. Like it's a pretty extreme thing that's been revealed,
Well,
right?
Chud,
Yeah,
I
is
totally
this
think
what
that's of
happens?
interest. I guess for me, I didn't focus on that as much, so I couldn't contribute as much, and so that why I didn't know that. But I don't mean to say
Listen,
like,
mate, it's fine. I've covered this for like 40 hours. So
yeah, I know you're
I've
locked
got,
in,
I've got
tuned
BBC
in,
piss orgies on the
and-
brain. Okay.
right, you've
Yeah,
got
so-
a bone to
hold
pick.
on.
I get it. So what? It was fun.
I have a question though. So Sansel said he moves centrist, and then Chad, I know that like you still said that like you have a large amount of your economic politics and all that kind of stuff. Like you still have concerns on that like kind of theory crafting side, but you focused on drama in order to make sure that you have like a healthy, vital channel or whatever. But is this what happens when progressives become too progressive? Do they just let their wives sext people on the back end and arrange crazy, sexy things on the back end?
Well,
I
I think-
feel like
I was asking Chud, but
Oh,
Sansel,
sorry,
I'd love
sorry,
to
I
hear
didn't-
your
I
side
didn't
of
They
the
look
story.
so alike.
Listen, let me take up more
Yeah.
oxygen, okay? I need to take up more oxygen here. Come on, let's go. But no, I was going to quickly say, just basically, I think that one of the big problems progressives has had is I agree they've become too progressive, and they're now arguing, in the case of like trans issues, they're now arguing against like medical bodies of progressive countries they would normally say have got good medical policies. So, it's like they're arguing progressivism to a fault, where there's even now evidence and data that suggests we need to pull back on some stuff. And whilst, I'm not like hardcore anti-sex work like Andrew is, but I do question the direction that society has taken if we continue down this pathway of endless and continuous sexualization to an insane sort of level.
Yeah, I would have
where,
loved to have talked about that. Yes, that
We
would have been.
can. We still got a half hour to an hour.
Oh, I know,
Yeah,
but I
Talk
didn't
about
I-
say
this.
that was my
still,
initial focus, hence my reluctance to get into the
Yeah.
drama stuff. But I still think that's a really interesting conversation about to what extent, if you think it, degrades society or degrades value, making sex transactional, whether or not you think decriminalization will lead to higher rates of human trafficking, whether all these things are really interesting conversations.
Yeah, I've always held like apart from like being progressive and stuff, I'm center left generally, but I've always had like a pretty unpopular opinion with sex work in that like most of it is incredibly harmful, and most of it I think perpetuates like the harm against women globally. So I've always held that position. But I mean, at the same time, like I have been convinced in recent years by conservatives, like some things just, some things are just not good and we should never encourage them,
Well,
right?
so
Like
so the
as soon as like people are like including like piss and poop into shit, like this is just unsanitary, like that
You
nobody
do it in a
should be
sanitary
like
way.
encouraging this. I don't care.
Is there a sanitary way to do poop, dude?
I
There's a
don't
more
think so.
sanitary way to
What
do it,
is
I
the
guess?
most
I don't
sanitary
think
way
so.
to have someone shit on your chest? Okay, we need to.
Let people
That's
let
the best thing you've said
Yeah.
all night, mate.
You need
I mean,
a lot of hand
Chud, we've got to get on the
sanitizer.
same. What is the most sanitary way?
So hold on. So this is actually really interesting. So is this my fault that I've accidentally like shifted the Overton window, or do you guys feel like the Overton window has just shifted on Twitch and YouTube politics over the past year?
I think it's the
anyways?
internet. It's
Well,
the entire
I
internet that's shifted
yeah.
fucking left. It's fucking
Part of it
or
is
no,
that all
it's
the
shifted,
conservatives
like,
got
it's to
banned.
the extreme. Like
Yeah.
Progressives have benefited from a very fertile environment on these big platforms where progressive ideas are codified way more than conservative ideas are. Like, as much as I hate to agree with the conservatives, like trans positivity was basically forced upon people on Twitter where you couldn't even misgender someone. Like, I don't think you should misgender people, but I think it's undeniable that these platforms have pushed in a certain direction with progressive stuff. And these conservatives getting banned hasn't helped the ecosystem on Twitch. You've now got no conservatives left, or there used to be a flourishing conservative scene. It's just kind of sucks, basically.
Well, so was Elon Musk buying Twitter? Was that kind of like a major shift in your guys' perspective? Because that, for me, I felt
Meh.
like people became more used to saying fucked up shit when he bought it, and I kind of view
Well,
that as a good thing.
He's running into the problem that he was always going to run into, is that it's who controls society. But no, on big tech, it's advertisers that have a lot of say in what goes. And even Jack himself pointed out he feels he made a mistake in letting advertisers into the Twitter ecosystem. But you cannot get around the fact that advertisers have got certain standards. Maybe they're flexible, you can push it at a societal level, but they're not going to want an advert for fucking a Ford Kia or whatever next to Holocaust denialism. That's just the way it is.
Right. And it's hard to come up with an alternative system as well, because like it's very expensive to run such a big social media platform, right? And so like what's the best way to make money as essentially a company whose main, claim to fame is we have a big audience of people using our platform? Well, obviously it's advertising. Nobody's going to pay $10 a month to use Twitter, right? I mean, that's just not going to happen.
Because you can tweet a whole bunch.
Yeah, but now you're seeing that like Elon Musk's newest tweets are under like a subscription thing where you can see them if you pay a certain amount of money to see them. Like,
yeah,
well, yeah, but
strange.
like, but Twitter Blue was a perfect test case for the idea of a subscription-based Twitter, and I mean, it just didn't work. I mean, it's not making basically any meaningful amount of money for Twitter, and especially compared to the advertising dollars. I mean, it's a public company; you can see where their money's coming from. It's just it's difficult in a profit-motivated sort of system. And even frankly, if Twitter was a nonprofit, it would just have a hard time maintaining its operations without advertising dollars.
No, absolutely. And I think that companies, even like Netflix, whose touted benefit was you don't get ads on a streaming service, have added ad-supported services because they've come to realize that ads actually can work. And people complain about ads on the internet, but the internet is so good these days because of ads, because of all the funding. YouTube is brilliant because of ads. Twitch is brilliant because it doesn't seem like it, but without ads, none of this would be like it is. Basically.
I mean, it's not nearly as bad as it was when it like first started. So I'm good with it.
Yeah. Okay, listen, I think people are getting bored with the economics. I've just got a super chat here I'd like to read out, if that's okay, because it's relevant to the question. So
is it for
ask
charity?
them. It's not for charity, this one, unfortunately. No, it's for my own pocket. So ask them, if degeneracy doesn't apply to the hypermodern approach to sexuality and sex work, then what does degeneracy mean anymore? Is it still a word? How would you define it?
Still a word, but I just don't care about that as much.
It's just the scope of degeneracy, right? Like I would say that, like, well, I would say like being a child molester is a type of degeneracy, right? It's bad to be a child molester. It's degenerate to do, and to say degenerate is to say that in the literal sense it degenerates, right? It's bad for society to have child molesters going around molesting children, right? Whereas if we're talking about Oh, just being gay is degenerate? I mean, come on, guys. Like, let's get serious. We've moved on.
We can be wrong about what
Yeah,
we once
what-
thought was
I wish
degenerate.
people would be like more honest about like the degenerate actions, right? Like I don't care if someone wants to like be into like feet or furries or scat porn or whatever the fuck, right? But like if you're going to engage in those sorts of things, recognize this is one of the questions that we didn't really get to, right? But like recognize that there's going to be like social consequences if that
That's-
shit gets
I
out,
agree.
right?
Yep.
And
agree.
like if you are going
Yep.
to go out there and you're going to put your butthole on fucking OnlyFans and someone finds that and someone shares that around, there are going to be like social consequences.
But this
for
is
it.
but
And
here's
people don't really
here's
take that into account.
but
That's
here's the
really
thing is
irritating.
a lot of liberals and progressives argue that like the quote unquote degenerate behavior is not the problem. It's actually the social stigma and social pressure against the behavior. So for instance, if we were talking about like let's just say that we like legalize sex work, we do the utilitarian analysis. Turns out HBCR and Econoboy are totally right.
Correct-based.
Incels get to bang whores. Whores get to make money. The cops don't have to participate in human trafficking as much. Overall, there's a net benefit in this segment of society. But along with that, there's a cultural shift where sex becomes more transactional. Hookup culture continues to go the way that it is. People don't take families as serious, which, by the way, I think contraception was going to do that anyways. And then we have like tax issues down the way because we have like negative population growth across the entire planet. Then
tax the prostitutes, but
sure, let's tax.
You know,
the
if I had to
prostitutes. I
guess, more
agree.
sex work would mean more kids.
you'd argue
all
against
else
some of
equal.
those things
Could
being
be
the
wrong.
case.
But hold
Get
on.
rid of
So I wanted
contraceptives,
to.
legalize prostitution. Boom,
But
we fix
I
our
want-
The
demographic
centrist
crisis.
position wins again, Sansel.
Well,
Brilliant.
okay, so I wanted to point out though, like my thing is, I think liberalism is the best governing philosophy because it basically means that we don't need to grab
Wow,
rocks
clipped.
and then go throw it at the
E-whores?
prostitutes. Yeah, throw it at the e-whores. So I think it's bad, to throw rocks at e-whores. However, I do think that there
Brave.
should be kind of like an internal conservative, like cultural momentum where we're saying like, if you want kids, if you want a stable family, you probably shouldn't be cheating on your partner. You probably shouldn't be engaged in very aggressive sex work behind your partner's back. You probably
Right, but
shouldn't
those
be,
are going to be
being
different
promiscuous.
from the question of
You
sex
might
work.
you might make the argument that you'll have these positive attitudes are easier to achieve if we're less stigmatizing sex work and talking about sex in a better way than we do in the country. You might end up in a situation where, because we're more open about those things, we can also talk about the importance of positive sex behavior, sex encounters, being prepared. I mean, like that's all just that cultural shift could come with an opening up of this stigmatizing or thinking it's degenerate to engage in sex work.
So we
I'm not
land in
sure
a
how
weird spot
much-
though.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. So I'll try to be brief. We landed in a weird spot though. For instance, I was talking to Mr. Girl like 6 months back or something like that. And I was like, hey, my critiques of like homosexuality or whatever ended up being promiscuity. And then we ended up isolating promiscuity as the variable that I more object to. But then there's like correlative behavior where I think, just being stereotypical, LGBTQIA plus people, they already feel like they're marginalized. So then they have like a slutty phase in their 20s where they're like, I'm going to do whatever because everybody was telling me not to do it. And then they engage in some pretty aggressive, fucked up behavior. And it feels like I can't criticize the hyper promiscuous behavior without being called homophobic. So like, how do you separate those?
Well, I think there are healthy ways to do those, right? You can be promiscuous in an unhealthy way versus a healthy way. I think that's how you would try and differentiate. And obviously, it's going to be somewhere in the middle
I don't
each
know if
time.
I agree with that.
You
I
don't
think
think
that
it's
you
possible
can.
to
I
have
don't think
multiple
it's-
sexual encounters in a healthy way?
Hold on. I think that it's hard for the majority of people to do that. Honestly, if you're going to do it on a like when I think promiscuous, I'm not thinking like 3 or 4 like sexual
Serial
partners
monogamy
over the course of like as many
Yeah.
years, right? I'm thinking about like you're having sex with a different person, maybe like once every 2 months, maybe 3 months, like you're having sex with people all the fucking time. And I don't think that most people are able to deal with that sort of thing. That's not to say that it's impossible. I don't think that it is, and that's why I wouldn't like make it illegal to be promiscuous. I wouldn't make it, I
Just to
wouldn't,
be
like,
clear,
morally
though, you're
condemn
saying that
people.
it's not, most people don't handle multiple sexual partners well?
I agree with
I don't
that.
think that most people.
Yeah, I agree with that as well.
Weird.
Yeah,
I don't
That's
think
why
they
I
help
don't
I'm not saying
balance
over
it.
the course of your life, right? Like if you have 7 sexual partners over like 30 years, like that's not like promiscuous to me. That doesn't make me think
Sure.
promiscuous. If you have 7 sexual
Oh.
partners over the course of 7 months,
Sure.
right?
You think that's promiscuous?
I would say.
I mean,
that's
that's
like
not
more
even as
towards-
bad as
I
some
don't
of
have,
them
like,
out there, anyways.
I don't
yeah.
have like a perfect continuum where like this is what promiscuous is, like 1.2 sexual partners every month, right? But like I would say that like there's a difference between 7 over 7 years and 7 over 7 months.
Of
Would you
course,
agree?
there's a difference. I don't know
Yeah,
if one's necessarily more unhealthy than the other.
Well, I'm saying it's not inherently
I think
that way.
I think it is.
it's-
So
Pardon me.
yeah, HPCR. So I think it can be, but different people have different emotional relationships to sex.
Totally.
So I think that I don't know if it's genetic, I don't know if it's cultural, if it's whatever. I think
Totally
that I attach a lot of emotional investment to intimacy, like physical intimacy. So even during a more promiscuous phase or whatever, I felt like, I was I was losing a chunk of myself every time I was in a relationship with a new person, even if I was like doing relatively slutty things. So I ultimately realized like this isn't good for me. This is more like the culture that's kind of pressuring me to be this way. And so I started engaging more in like serial monogamy until I found my wife, and then once I found my wife, we became monogamous. I think that a healthy chunk of the population is more like that, where serial monogamy or monogamy is ultimately better for their emotional health. I do think there's probably a few promiscuous people who can be promiscuous without emotional consequence.
I mean, but I think
guess
that
we just dispute percentages there on like the difference. You'd probably say like, I don't know, like 90-10 or something, 80-20 or something like that. Like
I'd literally say I think like 30% of the population should be monogamous, another 30% should be serial monogamous, and then another 30% can be promiscuous, and then 10% can be like straight up degenerate.
of course.
And then with the degenerates and the promiscuous people, my concern wouldn't necessarily be the emotional health. My concern would be the physical health. So do they wear condoms?
True. There's also
Yeah.
that's one of the things to be considered for sure. I think just naturally by having more encounters, physical health is especially if you're not practicing safe sex. I guess I agree with you that there are more people in the population that engage that way, the kind of serial monogamy kind of vibe. But I think there are a lot of people who have multiple sexual partners over several months and do it in a completely healthy way. And I wouldn't say it's any damage.
look, HP, that's obviously true. Here's the real response.
What about the
Counterpoint.
homosexuals? Can we talk about the
Hold on.
homosexuals, please? Because this is
Yeah,
getting
okay.
ridiculous, okay?
Right,
Because
that's- I was kinda gonna bring it there.
Soldier guy, that was too much. Like, that's too much fucking
Right.
non-monogamy. Can we agree on that?
I was
Was that a
I was kind of
specific
going to bring it
incident,
there.
or was
Okay,
that just a hypothetical?
no,
That's true. A guy.
the reality
sorry,
is
Econoboy, explain the monkeypox piss orgy guy, please.
yes. Okay, so the reality is, I was going to respond to what Counterpoints was saying, but what HP was saying is that obviously I think Connor would also agree that there's some people that can engage in promiscuity perfectly healthily, and I think to some degree we would probably also agree that generally being a more sexually open society might lead to less stigma and downstream effects. The issue is that people should be able to do what they want to the greatest possible extent, right? And when we're talking about, people engaging in sex or not, yeah, that has risks associated with it. The issue is that a society that stigmatizes this behavior is worse in terms of outcomes than a society that allows people to be conservative in their sexual life and be promiscuous and ultimately doesn't judge people for how they arrange their sexual life, right?
I don't think I
You
disagree with
said
you
some
with that. And
you
also,
said
I
some
think Connor
important
was
words, but
saying
I'll
it
wait.
was inherently.
Of course we would agree, right? I'm saying that's really, I think, the conversation that
Yeah.
we should head towards, because
Yes.
we would agree there's a proportion of people that is
So-
responsible and not on the broad.
I don't
So-
think
so
Connor.
hold on,
I
so-
thought he was saying it's inherent that if you're promiscuous, there's problems. I
So
thought that.
yeah, that's where I was going to go. So you mentioned risky behavior. So
What?
if I was to improperly analogize things, I would view it as like driving or shooting guns or something like that. Like it can be a really fun behavior. You can get a lot out of it. You could gain some interesting skills like being
Sure.
really talented in the bedroom, et cetera, et cetera. But just by sheer virtue of participating in that behavior more often than other people, you're taking on risks, and as a result, you're statistically more likely to suffer the consequences of those risks. So
That's right.
I don't have
So
a
it's
problem.
immoral to own
So-
more guns than less
So-
guns, right?
Well, sure, but you said
and if you drive more than other people, you're immoral because you're putting yourself in more situations where you could hurt
well,
someone.
but I think that there can be like a negative. There can be a negative cultural pressure for behaviors like driving and guns and all that kind of stuff, where you can say, "Hey, it's cool that you own guns, But if you don't practice safety stuff, and if you're like really errant with your guns, you're going to hurt yourself, you're going to hurt other people, and you're more likely to kill yourself than you are to kill a burglar. I think
But
that's
is
a
it
perfectly fine
inherently
thing.
more unsafe, right? Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Right, guys.
Okay,
Sorry, I just want to
driving
jump in and
is-
say it's late for me. I need to bounce. Okay, thanks very much for having me on. Love you
Yeah.
all. I thought like I might come, but I don't
See
think
you
it's
later.
happening, is it?
Lycan.
All right, parasocial love, bud. Catch ya.
Catch you later,
Yep.
boys. Bye bye.
Connor, I think what I'm not understanding though is that with regards to the risk of doing the thing and what people are encouraging. I mean, I just don't see a lot of popular commentators or like broad movements of like, yeah, go out and fuck 30 dudes a day. That's a great thing to do. Go do it. What I more so see, no, Connor, what I more so see is people saying, look, if you're more promiscuous, realize that there's risk associated with that, but I'm not going to judge you. That's really the message that I'm hearing.
So, okay, so we disagree with this on two levels. So, one, I think that there is a default social pressure. At least when I was like a teenager and young 20-year-old, I felt like there was a default pressure for promiscuity. I felt like if you looked at popular culture, if you looked at MTV, if you looked at music videos, if you looked at consumerism and materialism and all that kind of stuff, I felt like the default was to push people towards promiscuity. And then also, I think that one of the things that you keep saying that I disagree with is that we shouldn't judge that. No, I think we should judge it. But, like, you don't have to, like, you know, send the cops after somebody because they're promiscuous. You don't have to cut them out of your friend group because they're promiscuous. But if you have a friend who's getting, like, blackout drunk all the time and they're banging, like, 7 dudes within a month, regardless of whether or not they're a dude or a girl, then you can say, like, hey, I think you're taking a lot of risks, and I think that you're risking hurting yourself and hurting other people. And I have no problem saying that.
When I say judge, I mean on their moral character, right? I mean, I'm not like
I
if someone says I get drunk, if someone
good and bad, right?
But really quick, if the point that I'm trying to make though is not that you can look at someone who's like doing drugs every day and getting fucked by random people, like unsafe and like potentially getting disease. It's not that you couldn't look at a lifestyle like that and be like, yeah, I mean, that's probably not an optimal lifestyle for a number of reasons, right? But I'm not going to look at someone who's living a lifestyle like that and say like, oh yeah, you're like a bad person. That's really what I say by not judging them.
But
you would say that's you would say doing drugs and having sex makes someone a bad person. I mean, why?
What drug? And Star, I will let you go. Because if we're talking about heroin, cocaine, methamphetamine, I think these things correlate with a lot of addictive issues, and I also think they correlate with a lot of like negative antisocial behaviors like theft, vandalism, you know, like all that kind of crap. And then I also think that you're not prioritizing your own health or the health of your family. So yeah, I would say that
make you a bad person. I don't get why if somebody does meth, like why would I look at that person and say you're a bad person because you have a meth addiction?
Because they're probably going to go steal shit to fuel their meth addiction. Hold on, Stardust has been waiting for like 2 minutes. Stardust has been waiting for like 2 minutes, so I want to let her go.
Yeah, you're fine.
Yeah. So I do want to say there absolutely is a culture in which you know, even with females, you feel like if you're not having like physical relations with people, that you're missing out and you're like a dork, right? And there absolutely is like a phenomenon right now where hookup culture is the dominating culture within the dating scene. We can see that with like most dating apps because most people you know, on these dating apps are looking for a hookup from everything that I can see, right? And you've seen Tinder completely turn into completely a hookup app. So I would say that like absolutely there is the hookup culture has dominated the dating culture, and there are plenty of women out there, and I'm sure men too, who probably in any other circumstance, if this were not the dominating culture, would not be engaging in hookup culture.
I think men probably would.
Maybe,
or at least they would desire.
I don't know, but I don't know how that's a response to what we've said though. More people are hooking up, so that's what does that tell us? I mean, it doesn't necessarily tell us that.
I think that
it
there
doesn't.
Are a lot of,
yeah.
Wait. I think there are a lot of people who feel pressured, especially women who feel pressured to kind of like partake in that, and it's not good for their mental health. I don't think.
But people are pressured to participate in any dominant culture.
Yeah, I feel like men
quick.
are just as much peer pressured as women are.
That's exactly right. Yeah, people
really
are pressured.
On the male experience, right? But yeah,
I mean,
you know, if I lived. if I
Yeah.
lived in Pakistan, I would be pressured to participate in their social culture and customs, which of course is significantly less
Yeah.
promiscuous than we are today. At the very least, it's a significantly more stigmatized.
And we're
The
better.
issue that I have with that position generally is just that we've run the experiment on stigmatizing people who have sex, right? We've really tried that. And it just doesn't seem to result in any of the outcomes really that we would necessarily want. What it seems to result in is people getting in very terrible long-term relationships a lot of the times because they feel pressured to be monogamous, right? Or not monogamous, but they feel pressured to be in like long-term stable relationships, right? And it seems like it also leads to people being sexually completely uninformed in many circumstances that leads to poor outcomes like accidental pregnancies or spreading of disease. Whereas in general, if we were to say, hey, have sex if you want, here's the resources and the knowledge you need to responsibly engage in this activity, that's a much preferable society to me. Of course,
I
we can
agree
criticize
with
the
you.
dominant culture of
Yeah.
hooking up, right? Sure,
Yeah.
maybe people should put the brakes on it to some degree, maybe,
Connor thinks
right?
that's
But I don't
But
really think.
if I can, I do want, I agree with you, Connor Boy, and I will always advocate for like sex education, and education as far as like keeping people safe and things like that. But I felt like, I feel like we need to acknowledge that there is like this kind of dominating thing, and even like women's magazines, girls magazines, 17 magazine, which is read by people under 17. I remember reading it and it having like sex tips and stuff like that, and like saying that men will only fall in love with you after they've had sex with you, right?
To be fair,
So
I
we have
think they
to,
had masturbation tips.
I don't know anything
I
about.
don't.
I don't know.
I don't
I don't
remember the sex
remember.
tips from 17. I
don't
do
re-
remember the masturbation
Yeah.
tips though.
I don't remember that, but I'll take your word for it. So yeah.
Yeah, so this is the thing. Stigma is such a large term, and I feel like it's doing like a lot of heavy lifting. So I would say that in general, the human impulse to have sex is like incredible. It's one of the most overriding forces that human beings have, unless you're like asexual. So
Yeah, we barely talk about it.
Yeah, even
So-
kids who don't understand what they're doing are like almost inclined to move towards that direction with each other when they're alone. It's
So that's what I was gonna say is like I don't think that when you say stigma, if you mean like in Pakistan as an example, a girl holds a boy's hand that's from the wrong tribal group, and then you start throwing rocks at them because they're engaging in lurid activity. Of course, I'm not advocating for that. But at the same time, I think we should be realistic and basically say, counterpoints is totally correct. 30, 30, 30. 30 of y'all should be with one person for the rest of your life. 30% of y'all should be with like 5 people for the rest of your life. And 30% of y'all can be sluts. But even the sluts need to, wear condoms, take care of themselves, make sure that they're not being emotionally damaging to other people and themselves. And also, like, there's also an important distinction here, too, with the way that these people interact. I think that the social pressure that Star and I are talking about encouraged more monogamous and serial monogamous people to participate in hookup culture. And then as a result, they're like, why am I getting emotionally damaged? I thought this is what I was supposed to be doing as a young person. Why does it hurt when I break up with somebody that I had a casual relationship with? Why does it hurt when I had a relationship with somebody and then they dumped me and they moved on to somebody else real quick? I wasn't even that interested in that person in the first place. And I think there's like a subconscious game that we play, regardless of our culture, where our social value is tied to the partners that we can attract. And so even being honest with kids about that game, where you might want to be attractive to other people to raise your social status, but then not even want to fuck them because you're a naturally monogamous person or an asexual person. It gets really complex really fast, and it's hard to have that conversation with older teenagers and young adults, and let alone have them fucking listen to you.
Teenagers are dumb.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, that's going to be for everything. Teaching them not to do drugs or not whatever. They're going to be. All you can do is hope they're listening. Really.
But I don't want to have a neutral attitude where it's like, yeah, if you do meth, as long as you're a nice person and you pay your taxes, it's okay. I would never tell that to a 19-year-old.
But having
Nobody's
sex and doing meth are not the same thing.
I
Now,
thought they are in a way.
having sex with 30 people in 30 days is like doing meth. We can talk. But
Sorry,
if you're
guys.
just
I have to dip
We're
out.
going to
Thank you
quit,
for having
quite.
me.
Bye, Ginger.
because
Bye,
no
good
one
night.
says,
Nice to see
you know,
Ginger,
it's
and
totally-
thank you
Love you,
for being
Love-
here.
For sure.
Love you.
it's obviously totally fine to say you're not a bad person if you have a sexual encounter, like, or if you have a sexual encounter with someone and then they break up with you, your value isn't any less. Your self-worth isn't tied to your success in these relationships. Like, these are all things that we can just reinforce with the younger people. And like you said, whether they listen or not is tough. But like meth and having sex aren't quite equivalent, because meth naturally has already got this baggage of being not a valuable action, blah blah blah.
Yeah, you
Sex
say
is
that,
neutral.
but I could go so many ways with the metaphor though. But like, we take amphetamines all the time. Like ADD meds is effectively a style
I'm
of
on that shit
amphetamine.
right
It's
now,
not
brother.
meth,
Let's go.
And it's under doctor
Yeah.
supervision and diagnosis, so it's
Well,
not
technically,
the
you
act
can
of
just
doing
get
meth.
literal
Part of it
meth
is
for
the danger
ADD.
of using
Yeah.
something not a controlled substance kind of vibe. I mean, like it's not
Yeah.
just that it's meth.
The only thing that I'm
I
trying
there
to
is
analogize
literal
here,
methamphetamine that you can get for ADD. So
but the only thing that
Yeah.
I'm trying to analogize here is the longer you participate in a risky behavior, or the more you partake in a risky behavior, the more likely you are to see a negative outcome. That's the only thing that I'm trying to say.
Right, but you said I don't want to tell anyone they're a good person for smoking meth. And if you replace
True.
meth with I don't want to tell anyone they're a good person if they have sex. That seems like a weirder sentence to say.
I
But
don't think
but I'm
so.
okay saying
I
that.
think people. I
Sure.
think that there's a lot of pressure for dudes, for men, basically, that their self worth is based on how many women they can pull and how many people they can have sex with, and even to a lesser extent with women now too. So I think that's kind of what Connor is saying here, that you don't want to tell people like your self worth is based off of this, like you are a good person
Yeah.
because of this, right?
Oh,
You
of
want
course.
people to you want to say like, if you choose to have sex, sure, that's fine, but you want to be aware of, like, emotional investment. You want to be aware of like the physical harms that come with it, or physical, not harms, but risks that come with it. You and
Yeah.
also, if you don't want to engage in that, it's okay if you don't want to engage in that.
Right.
Totally, but
I'm
none
gonna
of that is
tell-
don't have sex a lot, right?
That's the
It's just,
overwhelming
if you're
message,
gonna have
though.
sex a lot, these are
I'm-
the steps you'd have to take and have to be ready for, because all of this comes with that.
But this is what I'm going to tell my kid though, because I feel like if Econoboy and HPCR and I were raising kids, we would be effectively telling our kids different things. I feel like y'all would be saying, "Hey, as long as you're careful, you wrap your tool, you get consent, you explain everything to your partner, you guys are realistic about your emotional investment in each other, then do whatever you're doing as long as you're relatively safe. Kind of like drive your car however you want to drive as long as you're wearing a seatbelt." Whereas
And
with
following
me,
the law, yeah.
yeah. Whereas with me, what I'm going to tell my kid, because I don't think these things are completely analogous, is I'm going to say, don't sleep with someone unless you're ready to have kids with them. And like I'm not saying like emotionally like you have to be in the perfect spot in order to have kids, in order to have sex. What I'm saying is I know a whole bunch of people who were not a whole bunch, but I know a few pretty glaring examples who were participating in hookup culture. Then they ended up getting the wrong person accidentally pregnant. They ended up keeping the kid. And then as a result, they love their kids. They love their children. They would sacrifice their entire lives for their children. But they are tied to somebody who has drug issues, mental health issues. They have health issues, all this kind of shit. And so as a result, like I would so much rather my kid come home and he's like, "Hey, I got this girl pregnant, but she's actually really nice. She's really cool. We have a lot of things in common. She's beautiful. She's what I was looking for in a woman. I just wasn't ready to be a father yet. Oops." Like I would so
Well,
much
yeah,
rather
but-
have
but
that conversation than
Connor,
I'm getting my
I feel like
girlfriend an abortion because I hooked up with the wrong girl.
we would agree though, to some degree, right? Because
Would you?
I would tell my kid it matters who you have sex with, right?
Yeah.
To some degree, right?
Mhm.
That like
Yeah.
obviously if you see like a homeless woman on the street who's asking to fuck you for $20, hey, probably don't do that, because there's a lot of risks associated with that, both involving and not involving a pregnancy, right? And so, I think that it's reasonable.
Just make sure you're having sex with someone that's going to get you the most clout on OnlyFans.
I feel like what we
Bro.
should tell him is that according to the Bible, as long as you marry that woman, it's perfectly okay, right? No, yeah, of course. But
No,
the
no,
point
no,
is just to say
There's a point
I
there.
agree,
Personally,
yeah,
I
you
like
would
the
say
Quran.
No, but the point is just to say I don't think
brother.
there's anything incompatible with the telling someone the quality of person and the type of person you have sex with is important, but also I'm not going to judge you if you properly curate your sexual partners and it happens to be a high quantity of them. I don't see the room for moral judgment in that regard.
What if they meet
You
multiple people
want-
that they know they could have
Hold on,
kids with?
Star was waiting.
Well, I think that's the point, that you want people to make these decisions, to be physically intimate with people, and when they make that decision, they know it's going to be a meaningful experience with a person who is not like
Yep.
a piece of garbage, and even if it's a casual experience, it's
Right.
still meaningful, and it's still like you're not
But I don't
being
think I think the
yeah.
thing that Stars you and I
Moral.
disagree with is the
Mhm.
idea that is not generally what is being said in progressive spaces. I think that the general message that people have been getting, right, is that, hey, sex is something that has risks. Sex is something that has some amount of social responsibility, but we're not going to judge you harshly if you have a lot of sexual partners. That's not incompatible with saying you should have sex with the right people, you should do it
Yeah.
safely. Like, I just
I don't
don't
know
think
if
that
it's
generally the
So
message is
Tano-
like, I don't think
know
generally
if
the message is like, just fuck whoever you want and
Yeah,
who
no.
cares
No.
and just
I'm
go
not
for
saying
it.
that
Well,
that's
have you
the
been in a Vosh
progressive-
chat
I'm not
recently?
saying that that's a progressive message.
Okay,
even,
fucking
right?
got me,
What
dude.
I'm saying is that it's regardless of progressive or conservative or whatever, right? That is just like the message that I saw a lot of the time. It does
I
it,
think
it
what's-
had no political affiliation to it.
What's
Yeah.
kind of
it
getting
just was
crossed here
what it was.
is what we would tell like our own children versus like what we think is the
General
broader
legal social
societal
prescriptions.
yeah. So like
Oh, I feel like I'd say the
for
same
any individual, I would tell them like you need to make sure, like I've said this like 5 times because I think this is like the most important thing when it comes to OnlyFans. Like people need to know what the fuck they're getting into, right? Like,
Yes.
I don't care if someone
Well-
has a fucking OnlyFans. I'm not gonna like sit there and shit on them and literally call them e-whores, even though it's fun to do on a panel. Right?
Yeah, so
but I
Econo
am
Boy.
going to
Mhm.
yeah.
No, sorry, go ahead, Sanzo, finish.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, I feel like it feels like all of us kind of agree, like on some level, maybe not like completely entirely, but on some level, like, yeah, we maybe like shouldn't be like inherently shitting on these people just because they do this one thing, but there's like 1 or 2 qualifiers we would each put on it.
Yeah, and so what I would say is a lot of these behaviors are correlative, and I would put a little bit of moral judgment on promiscuity. So for instance, like morality, as far as I can tell, just when I Google it, it's just the study of good and bad, right? Like that's all I can that's all I think it is when it boils down. So there's a spectrum of good and bad. If I bump into a serial killer who's doing hardcore drugs, who lies and cheats and steals, that's going to be, at the upper echelons. Whereas if there's somebody who's promiscuous but they're safe, they're going to be at the lower echelons. But I'm still going to have some level of negative judgment with that. And like I would say that a lot of these behaviors are correlative. So we have a friend, I'm not going to name them, but they're, in the online space. They were a stripper for a long time and they did sex work for a long time and all that kind of stuff. And I think they're in an open relationship now. But if you talk to that person, then it seems like there's like a healthy chunk of trauma associated with their upbringing when they were young, the way they viewed sex when they were a young adult, the way they participated with sex in their 20s, and the way they participate in sex now, where I'm not saying that like their views on promiscuous sex caused the trauma, but it does seem like it's correlative.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying. It's not that I would disagree with some of those correlations, right? I think that the issue is that how do I put this? Like the tightness of fit for certain correlations isn't static, right? I mean, the correlation between like say, drug use and trauma and having been promiscuous at a younger age, right? That's not it's not sort of a fact of human nature, right? We can change that over time. And again, I think in a world where we are generally accepting of people's sexual preferences, assuming it's involving consenting adults, right? And where we have robust sex education of, basically engaging in sex responsibly in every meaning of that word, I just don't think that that's a world where a lot of people are traumatized as a result of being promiscuous. You got to keep in mind, it's also it's correlative with a lot of other stuff, right? Sometimes having a bad upbringing can lead to people being more promiscuous in an irresponsible way, which can only further their trauma, right? And so it's very complicated, but I think the best society is the one that I described, where basically people are, from a stigma perspective and from a moral judgment perspective, basically allowed to engage in the sexual relationships, that they want. Again, assuming consenting adults and all that stuff. So
No, I appreciate it. Well,
I need to hop out.
I was gonna say it's hitting 11:30. I loved hanging out with y'all, and I loved hanging out with everybody who was here before. But I am gonna just answer a few questions from chat and call it a night.
Alrighty.
But it was fun hanging out with y'all, and I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to the next one.
Thanks for
Absolutely.
having us.
Catch
Yeah.
you later, guys.
Have a
See
beautiful night.
ya.
All right, very cool, very cool. And then I just want to say, Cody, if you're still there, I think we got you $215 tonight. Some of it might have to wait until a few weeks, just because I need to get paid, and some of that came through YouTube Super Chat, but we did get a healthy chunk of money for you. Yeah, Moody Owl, go to bed. I'm just gonna wrap up and say goodnight to everyone. But that was super duper fucking fun. I had a great time. Thank you to everybody for the donations. I'm not going to take anything from tonight. It's all going to go to Cody. And I appreciate y'all, hanging out, bullshitting with us, having a good time, et cetera, et cetera. And if you have any questions or concerns, put them in the chat now. I'm going to raid out on Twitch. We peaked out around 30. We're down to 15 right now. And then on YouTube, we peaked out around 80. We got like 70 right now. So I appreciate all of y'all spending your evening with us, and hopefully getting a little bit of drama, a little bit of shit talking, a little bit of fun, a little bit of social and political description and prescription. So yeah, I hope y'all had a great time. So why did I shave my beard? Out of boredom. So I just, I was looking like Grizzly Adams. My beard was improperly trimmed, and there was some random scraggly hairs that I didn't like, so I just trimmed it off. But it'll come back. The wife likes the beard more than the clean-shaven face anyways. Hunter would have been a great guest. True. I would have brought him on, but I didn't want the people involved in the drama to be getting bullied as a part of the panel. I actually would have invited them, but I didn't want to. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings with these things. I just want to talk about what's relevant and what's fun. So yeah, I look more soy. Yeah, well, beards do make you a little bit more masculine. But anyways, I don't see too many questions. Parasocial love to you and yours. I'm gonna raid out on Twitch, so if the Twitch people don't mind hanging out with me for another 10 or 20 seconds, I'm gonna send y'all out to somebody else, and then we're gonna call it a night. But it was very fun hanging out with y'all. I really do hope Chud Nation and Chud Nation and the Stargazers can resolve their differences. I really do like them both as people and creators. So I will pray. I will pray that this conflict can be resolved. All right, 3, 2, 1. All right. Good night, Twitch folks. And YouTube chat. You are my favorite chat. Appreciate y'all. Have a beautiful night. Bye for now.